All right, everybody, I got 7 o'clock. Let's call to order this regular city council meeting for February 27 of 2024 for the city of Troutdale. Excuse me. If we could all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Sarah, can we take roll call, please?
Yes. Counselor Rittma.
Here.
Counselor Caswell.
Here.
Counselor One.
Here.
Counselor White.
Here.
Counselor Wittrin.
Present.
Counselor Glantz.
Present.
Mayor Lauer.
Here. All right. Do we have an agenda update, Mr. Ray Young?
Mayor, no, the agenda is as written tonight.
All right. I'm going to open up public comment. Public comment on non-agenda and consent agenda items is welcome at this time. Public comment on agenda items will be taken at the time the item is considered. Public comment should be directed to the presiding officer and limited to matters of community interest or related to matters which may or could come before council. Each speaker shall be limited to 5 minutes for each agenda item unless a different amount of time is allowed by the presiding officer with consent of the council. The council and mayor should avoid immediate or protracted responses to citizen comments. If anybody wishes to make public comment in council chambers tonight, now's the time. So if you wish, go ahead and approach the desk, state your name and city of residence for the record. And if nobody in council chambers tonight, then anybody on Zoom wishing to make public comment, go ahead and unmute yourself, state your name and city of residence for the record.
Mayor Lauer, Paul Wilcox, Troutdale.
Good evening, Mr. Wilcox. Go ahead.
Okay, I'll just get right to it. This will be my third and final review of City Charter Chapter 7 and Section 27 in particular, what creates a vacancy. Not going to address all the itemized reasons why a vacancy on council would occur, as most of those are shared in one form or another by other Oregon cities, although some specific items are included in some but not in others. What I'm addressing is simply a single word that occurs in Troutdale's charter language that I found in no other city charters among 20 that I reviewed in the metro area. That is the word may under Section 27, subsection B, which reads in full, quote, in addition, the office of mayor or councilor may be declared to be vacant by the council if the incumbent, unquote, then goes on to enumerate various reasons for a vacancy. The insertion of the word may makes the declaration of vacancy for any of the listed reasons optional. However, at least some of those reasons, such as ceases to reside in the city, are basically absolutes. For example, that one in particular is included in Section 13, qualifications for elective office, which states, quote, no officer elected or appointed may continue to serve if he or she ceases to be a resident of the city, unquote. Another vacancy reason that is in the optional section is, quote, is convicted of a felony or crime pertaining to the incumbent's office, unquote. This could also fall under ceases to be an elector under state law, since incarceration results in the loss of voting rights. It's common among cities for there to be two levels of vacancy, level one being more or less self-evident and therefore automatic, such as a death or resignation, and level two requiring a declaration by council due to a qualifying action taken by the incumbent. However, no other city makes level two causes an optional basis by inserting the word may. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilcox. Anybody else on Zoom wishes to make public comment? Now's the time. Go ahead and unmute yourself and state your name and city of residence for the record, please. All right, not seeing anybody jump at the chance. I'm going to go ahead and close public comment. And we'll move on to agenda item number 3, consent agenda. Glenn, you want to read consent agenda?
All right, consent agenda 3.1 minutes, January 9, 2024. City Council regular meeting, January 16th, 2024. City Council special meeting on January 23rd, 2024. City Council regular meeting. 3.2, a resolution approving an amendment and restated intergovernmental agreement with the Regional Water Providers Consortium. I move adoption of the consent agenda. Second.
All right, seconded by Councilor Wittrin.
Counselor Whitma,
Yes.
Counselor Caswell,
Yes.
Counselor One,
Yes.
Mayor Lauer,
Yes.
Counselor White,
Yes.
Counselor Wittrin,
Yes.
and Counselor Glantz.
Yes.
All right, passes. Thank you very much. Thanks, Glenn. Let's move on to agenda item number 4, a request from the Mount Hood Community College for the city of Troutdale to be a sponsor for the 2024 Mount Hood Jazz Festival. Mr. Dan Davey, Mount Hood Community College Director of Jazz Studies and Festival Director for Mount Hood Jazz Festival. Welcome back.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. Am I able to share my screen on here?
Thank you for KDHD.
Yes. Okay. Good. There we go. Okay. Do I stay muted?
Yeah.
I'm also gonna
That microphone right there to your right.
Yeah, that's the one you're using, is the one with the red light on it.
have an echo here. Is that bothering anybody but me?
I don't think I can
No,
hear.
you don't hear it? It is, yeah. Oh, there we go. Okay, got it. Thank you for having me here today. My name is Dan Davey. I'm the Director of Jazz Studies at Mount Hood Community College, and I run the Mount Hood Jazz Festival. And I wanted to just kind of inform, I've talked about this the last few years, but for anybody who might not be familiar with the current state of the Mount Hood Jazz Festival, it's a little bit different than maybe what you might be familiar with from the 80s and 90s. So the festival, the Mount Hood Jazz Festival began in 1982. It was an all-professional festival. It was held on the campus of Mount Hood Community College, not run specifically through the college. It was the Mount Hood Jazz Festival of Jazz Association that ran it in conjunction with the foundation at the college, and it brought in the who's who of the jazz artists from the time, from Sonny Rollins, Dave Brubeck, Tito Puente, Arturo Sandoval, B.B. King, and would draw thousands and thousands of people. It was a 3-day summer festival. It was held outside with in the stadium with the mountain in the background. And then in the early 2000s, it moved off campus and was held in downtown Gresham until about 2014, which was the last time that it was held. At the same time, or simultaneously, the Northwest Jazz Band Festival was a festival that was run by the music program at Mount Hood Community College. For 43, it's actually probably 45 years now. This festival has grown. It includes high schools, high school jazz ensembles, middle school jazz ensembles, who are all performing and receiving feedback on their performances. They're attending master classes and learning how to do what they do at a higher level. And this would draw, maybe 75 high school, middle school jazz ensembles in the past. So in 2019, the former Mount Hood Jazz Association board signed over the use of the Mount Hood Jazz Festival name to the music program at Mount Hood Community College. So it returned to the college then. We were going to launch a version of the Mount Hood Jazz Festival in 2020, but we all know that nothing happened that year except for the pandemic. So it didn't happen that year. Our thought and what we had envisioned to do in that 2020 year was to take the old festival, the Northwest Jazz Band Festival, and combine it with the old ideas of the old Mount Hood Jazz Festival and create this new festival that engaged students from middle school through high school, college age, who are all trying to perform and improve their craft, and then also add in all these professional performances, bring artists to the East County area that these students would not normally have exposure to. And now you have from 6th grade all the way through professional level, you can see the entire pipeline of what these students are trying to do. So it's truly an inspiring weekend for them. And they're engaged, they're active, they're doing, they're listening, they're seeing. It's really energizing. So with this new format, we tried to launch it in 2020, but like I said, the pandemic happened. In 2021, we did just a live stream festival, which many of those performances are still up on our YouTube page. In 2022, we launched a small version of the festival with COVID restrictions. We utilized the Yoshida Haven Estate for the professional concerts, but we found that that had some accessibility issues for people who were trying to attend those, both students and community. And then last year, 2023, we finally opened up to full capacity, and it was really magical. It was so wonderful. So we engaged with a whole bunch of community sponsors. We received grants to help us make the festival possible. The college and the foundation itself has $0 of budget that is put towards the festival. So everything that happens is raised by me, with the help of people like you and other companies in the area who believe in this and believe in the arts culture of our neighborhoods. So last year, there's a picture of all the students in our college theater, and that wasn't even all of them. A lot of them had prom that night. We had 15 middle school bands perform last year, 48 high school big bands, which is anywhere from 17 musicians on up, and 19 high school jazz combos, which is 7 musicians or less. We had 52 band directors plus several student teachers who were attending, approximately 1,600 to 1,800 students, and as many family and friends in attendance as well. We sold over 400 tickets to the professional concerts to members of our community. We had 11 performances last year, and we connected with 35 businesses or collaborated with 35 businesses or municipalities to help make it happen. Last year's festival was also supported by the City of Gresham Arts and Culture grant as well. Our social media blew up last year. We had a lot of people engaged on social media because I hired somebody who understands social media better than me. And here, if this works, is a little glimpse of what last year's festival was like. And we'll see if there's sound on here. It's a three-day festival, and Friday and Saturday take place on our campus. And Sunday, we have, you can see at the end there, performances around the community in Gresham and at Troutdale Station here. And those are free to the public and accessible to them. So we feel that this festival has and will continue to play an important role in the story of our community and deepening the arts culture here in East County. It supports musicians of all ages and abilities to bring international exposure to our community, supports local businesses, and deepens the cultural experience of our community, and brings world-renowned musicians to the people of our community and the people of our community to our local businesses. This is our lineup. This is the first time anybody has seen this. We haven't actually announced who is performing. We just made this graphic today, but it's coming out in the next week. So we have a lineup of some really great artists that are coming out this year for the festival. And we're really excited about it being back at the college. We feel like its connection to education is going to provide longevity to this festival that it hasn't had in the past. And this new model, as soon as you involve students in things, there's more value to it, and there's more longevity and security, in my opinion. So my ask for you all have been very supportive in the past of sponsoring the festival, and I ask that once again you would consider supporting the festival again this year for 2024, and possibly even increasing your sponsorship level and amount. The artists' fees have gone up every year because everything else has gone up. The prices of everything else have gone up. So that continues to get more and more expensive. So if you would consider increasing, then I would be grateful for that as well.
What was our
previously? It
last
was
year?
5,000.
So when you say increasing, what's the number rattling around in your head? 5,500 or I mean, anything is great. 6,500 would be fantastic. 5,500 would be fantastic. Anything is great. Anything helps and making this happen. I mean, the more I have, the more I can do. So, right. And this money would go into a combination of the educational side of it, but also with a lot of it putting these events in the community as well. Yeah. Any comments or questions from council? Yeah, Councilor Rittman.
Do we have a budget for this sort of thing? I don't know who to ask, right?
No, we don't. That's why we need a motion from council if any money is directed toward them. So we'll have a record to show the auditors. That was the one request from Mr. Mueller tonight.
For me, I would like to see a second also.
Oh. So no, we don't have a specific budget for this because it's one of those expenses that we never know what it would be or when it would be coming up. And in some ways, I don't want to commit the council, which may be different each year, to what they should spend or will spend. But we can afford to spend something comparable to what we did before.
I see. Okay. Well, very impressive. Very impressive.
Yeah, Councilor Wittrin.
Last year when you were here, one of our asks and concerns was trying to connect more with the Troutdale community versus the Gresham community, trying to get more bodies and circulation out here, and especially with the free events, and when you talk about the more engagement you have going on, and naturally people are spending more time, more money, more connecting with that community. So what is gonna be different this year versus last year for Troutdale specifically?
Sure. One of our sponsors is the Troutdale Station, so we've put music there last year, and we will again this year. We've already arranged that. And I have not found another partner that's willing to host music there. For a long time, we had a relationship with formerly the Way Out Inn, but now Lolo's Boss Pizza. And we would host a monthly event there, and our faculty would play there, students would play there. But with the pandemic, that stopped and just never picked up again after that. So I would love to increase the amount of performances that are here as well. I live in Troutdale, I'm a Troutdale resident, so I would love to see that. I just don't know of a spot where we could do that would be willing to collaborate on that. But I am open to any suggestions.
Okay. Counselor Glantz.
Yes, how much are tickets?
Tickets, they range. I can also show you, I have it up. Nobody has seen this yet either. This is the inside.
Jeez.
I know. Let's see.
Yeah.
Okay. Tickets haven't gone on sale yet, but they range from free shows, and then there's $10 shows. This is Friday, May 3rd, and the headliner on Friday is the Portland Jazz Composers Ensemble. They're debuting the music of a jazz musical, which is an interesting concept. So the headliner is on that evening is $30. The shows on Saturday range from $10, $20 to the headliner is $30. And you know, if we went into Portland and saw Kenny Garrett's band, which I did the last time he was here, he's a really big name, and tickets would easily be $50. So I have kept them low. You can also buy a weekend pass. The value of that is, I believe, $140, and you can buy it for $60. So I'm trying to keep this accessible. I just want people to go. I want, you know, I don't rely on ticket sales to fund the festival. So, you know, that kind of just goes towards next year. So everything, I just want people to come. I just want.
And you said there were 400 sold approximately last year. What's sellout? How many would that be?
400 plus tickets sold.
Right, and if you sold everything out, that would be 400, is that?
No, last year we used the gymnasium on campus for all of these pro shows. This year there was accessibility issues there as well. So we're gonna use our college theater this year, which seats 500. So we've got a large capacity. However, we also have the 1,600 students too. So we're setting aside 300 per show for the students and 200 for community. And then we have the ability to, you know, move tickets around. If only 200 students are going to that, we can bump the 100 over to the community as well.
Okay, I did this in the 70s as a high school student, and there was one song I learned on the keyboard I still play to this day, so.
Oh, great. Wonderful.
All right. Any other questions or comments from council? Councilor Caswell.
Yeah, I love it. And I don't have a problem with upping the contribution just from my perspective. I think it's totally a worthy investment and appreciate what you guys do. I think it's awesome.
When do tickets go on sale?
We've been a little bit delayed this year. I was in ICU for all of the fall. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you're sitting here.
Thank you.
Giving
Me
your
too.
presentation.
I was on life support for a while.
Oh, wow. I'm sorry to hear that.
Thank you. So we're a little bit delayed in some of the normal things. So I'm shooting for early March, which is in the next couple of weeks. I'm just waiting on a few things from some of the artists.
Okay.
Yeah. So in the next couple of weeks.
Everything's moving forward with you.
Yes.
Well,
yeah.
okay.
My staff picked up when I woke up from my medicated coma.
Wow.
they were still going with everything. So
You have a good team behind you then.
yeah, they're great. They're wonderful.
Counselor Glantz, I can't tell if your hand's up or if I'm frozen or you're frozen.
Am I still frozen?
Not anymore.
Okay. I did kind of flash it up there for a second. I was just gonna say, maybe we set aside a line item in our budget that's like 10,000 for sponsorships. And again, I think, as you know, we're always told we don't have to spend it, but at least that way we have something that we're, working against rather than always, taking this out of the general fund.
Yeah,
But yeah,
right.
I'm supportive of the additional fee.
Okay.
I misspoke. Marley corrected me. There is a line item in our budget of $25,000 for city-sponsored events. It doesn't delineate for what, and so there is a budget that we budget for things like this, and so that's what the budget is for. The only question is, do you like the idea that they come every year and ask? Or, do you want to just assume it for a couple of years? But just to know there is a budget for it.
Grandma Lauer always said something about assuming, but I'm not going to repeat what she said in polite company. I'm glad that we do have a budget for it, and I wasn't going to correct Ray up here. I'm glad Marley did. Thank you, Marley. I think what you do is wonderful for the community. I think continuing to be a part of that is a tradition that I hope that Troutdale continues. I hope we find it to continue that tradition moving forward. I think Councilor Wittrin's right. It would be great if we had a couple more Troutdale specific spots, but that's not dependent on what we can do, and that's dependent more on the conversations you and your team have with supporting businesses or organizations around the city. So I would just encourage that. And I guess personally, if there's anything that I can do to help facilitate some of that, I would be more than happy to do that.
That'd be great.
But as soon as ticket sales go online, I would love to know that as well.
Sure.
So for my wife and I.
Absolutely. I think, could I just say one thing?
Yeah, absolutely.
About that?
Please.
I think just spreading the word about the festival, there's so much about this festival that means so much to so many people. I think there's so much nostalgia around the festival. Just spreading the awareness that the festival exists, and it's a different format than it used to be, but it's one that maybe is more sustainable.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is another way that everybody could help just kind of get that word out there, that there's something here that we can all take part in, and we're all part of the community, so it's here for us.
Yeah.
I don't have to talk us into this, but I do. My dad had been involved with Dan and doing things for him for a number of years, and I know that someone that took over for Dan in college is my kid's piano teacher. They're just wonderful people, very kind but amazing musicians and amazing teachers. I think it's a thing that they do for the community. Also, it's kind of nostalgic because I remember my aunt and uncle would always come out to the jazz festival. When I was a kid, they would come out, go to the festival, and we'd always have dinner and stuff and do that. So it has a lot of meaning, I think, to our community. So we'd make a motion to yeah. So I don't know if we want to keep discussing.
Well, Councilor White, do you have any comments to add?
Well, I just want to explain, I've voted on this no each time, and it has nothing to do with the event, but I take the 25,000 is for city sponsored events in our city, and I feel a strong obligation to our citizens to keep that money in Troutdale. We've lost a lot of events. We don't have our parade anymore, or Summerfest, or the ice cream social, and there's a lot of things that have fallen off in our city that I'd like to see come back, because it really builds community, and a lot of it occurred during COVID. So I feel confident you're going to get your money, but I just want to explain my reason for voting no.
Sure, thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, in that case, I'll make a motion to sponsor the Mount Hood Community College, or the 2024 Mount Hood Jazz Festival, and I would say in the amount of $66,000.
$6,000.
I'll second.
Friendly amendment?
Friendly amendment? Would you
Like
be
to see it,
entertaining a friendly amendment?
Oh, yeah.
I'd like to see it be 6,500.
I would second that.
Okay.
Thank you.
So for a friendly amendment, go ahead and, because it was motioned and seconded, you could make an amendment to that motion and then,
Do I just say it again?
yeah, and then,
Okay.
and with the amendment of 6,500.
Okay, so I would like to make a motion to sponsor the 2024 Mount Hood Jazz Festival in the amount of $6,500.
I will second.
Okay. Any further discussion from council?
I'll just explain, I have voted no in previous years, but I'm so impressed with what you put together. And also, you do have a Troutdale event going, and it's changed my mind, so I'm gonna be a yes this time.
All right.
And I will just say, is I didn't mean to come across as negative. I think it's a great event. I think everything else, I just want to make sure Troutdale's getting their fair share. So come back with a little bit more for next year. I would absolutely love it. So.
All right. All right, Sarah, thank you.
Counselor Whitman,
Yes.
Counselor Caswell,
Yes.
Counselor One,
Yes.
Mayor Lauer,
Yes.
Counselor White,
No.
Counselor Wittrin,
Yes.
Counselor Glantz.
Yes.
All right, passes.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations, thank you. Keep doing a
Appreciate
good job and stay healthy.
Yes, thank you.
Good presentation.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm going to hold you to, you told the mayor that you would tell him when tickets go on.
Yes.
Please send that around.
Yeah, absolutely,
And
please
actually,
do.
if you're on Facebook or Instagram, social media, our Camille Brouillet is doing our social media and she's fantastic. So you can follow on there and she's a step ahead of me most times. So she'll announce it on there and we're gonna make, the graphic you saw about the artist will announce by the end of this week too.
Awesome,
Thank you so much.
thank you. All right, everybody, we're gonna move on to agenda item number 5. A request from the Troutdale Arts Center for the city of Troutdale to be a sponsor for the 2024 Troutdale Arts Festival, Shannon Chisholm Troutdale Arts Festival. You have the floor. Good to see you again.
Good to see you. Thank you all for allowing me back. I was just remembering that a year ago I was sitting here and we were talking about the crazy idea to move that arts festival out onto the highway and hoping for a good response. I think it went fantastically well. The event was very successful. The amount of people attending, we had a record for the Troutdale Arts Festival. And it was just wonderful to see that many people in downtown. I was here a few months ago, I think, with Marley. We talked about all those numbers, but the numbers show year over year, the amount of people on that weekend in downtown Troutdale was significantly higher. From the arts festival itself, the numbers were significantly higher. I thought it was great. Shuttles were bringing people in from around the area. So that was great to see. The numbers showed that while people were here, they came to see the art, they stayed, they ate at the restaurants, they shopped in the retail, and really got to spend some time learning about Troutdale. We didn't bring in outside food other than ice cream, which was our intention all along. That worked out very well. The restaurants adapted a little bit. Troutdale Burrito is one that I talk to regularly. They loved it. They came out, they sold well, and they're asking me when they can get started again. The artists sold well, and we're getting a great response for this year for returning artists. And the galleries were they also had good attendance over the weekend. One of the things we took a look at while we were planning is that we made sure we planned the hours of the event so that people stayed in downtown Troutdale and then were there during dinner time or lunchtime so that we could again get people into those businesses, which I agree is very important. The overnight security, it was interesting to hear what they had to say. I had overnight security on the highway all night. Other than some really funny stories, what they did say is that the detour route was not very busy overnight. And everybody that went through that detour route, it was easy to get them through. So we were concerned about maybe buses or large RVs. All of that worked out really well. You, Councillor One, actually brought up last year that you'd like to see more music happening in downtown without closing the streets. So we were able to bring in music at the market, which I thought was really successful. And that came from this conversation. Cascadia Arts Association is the nonprofit that puts this project together. They came together very quickly when it was transitioning from the chamber out. One of the things that Cascadia did this year is they've now come under the umbrella of the Center for the Arts Foundation, which is a much larger and longer term arts organization. So they're maintaining their 501c3, maintaining their separate things, but they're being able to utilize Center for the Arts Foundation financial support, putting their financials together, those kinds of things, and some of the office pieces that the volunteers who created Cascadia Arts Association needed some support with. And that is really looking towards a sustainable organization so that we have a plan to move into the future with the Arts Festival. And sponsors have been reaching out to me, which is fantastic, about they liked the attendance, they liked the marketing last year, and are starting to come back in now. So we're really working on that now. So I am here tonight to ask you to support the Troutdale Arts Festival again. And I am hoping that you are able to do that at the $15,000 that I asked for last year. That was a huge help to this festival, and it's something that we at this point can't do without your support. Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, any questions from council? Now is the chance. Comments or questions? Councilor Glantz.
Yep, I have a couple questions. I thought last year some of the issues were also around the hours, and I thought we heard some unhappy feedback from some of the restaurants down there that, you know, while the hours were still open, people shut down and left. And that kind of put them in a tough spot of, well, you know, if everybody's left, then that, you know, hurts my business, and it, you know, actually costs me money to have all this food ready to go, and not all the hours were actually completed. Can you address that?
I don't think that I heard that. I heard that about another event on the highway during the summer that ends midday. But we're there until dinner time. We definitely, and we had a concert happening on Friday night in Mayor Square and on Saturday night in Mayor Square that went until 9. We definitely could increase the hours on that. I'm all about having live music and bringing people together and bringing them in. So that's something that we could most definitely look at.
Okay, thank you.
When is it?
It's the first full weekend of June. Thank you, I should have said that. And we tie it into the first Friday. So first Friday happens, the first outdoor summer street fair happens on that Friday, and then we roll right into the Arts Festival for the next 2 days.
Councilor White.
Oh, yeah, I was just gonna comment that I met with a lot of the business people after the event and got their feedback and shared it with Shannon. We met also, and you already have it on your list. And a lot of the people that came and were concerned about it prior to the event happening told me, forget everything I said. It was our record day, business day, that sort of feedback. So I think we're on track, and I'm glad to see that it's evolving and you're learning what works and what doesn't and what you need to fix. And having you there is a big plus.
I appreciate that. And
I'll
yeah,
be
there
voting
are,
yes for this one.
there are always things to learn, absolutely. And we took note of every single one of them and have already started to address those. So I appreciate that. I will say I moved here 30-some years ago because of the jazz festival. So that was why I ended up in East County.
Wow.
From out of state. But yes, I think we will just keep adapting. I think this new structure is really going to help, and I think we had a great summer, and I'm looking forward to doing that again.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other comments, Councillor Woodring?
I'll just say I'm racking my brain, but I think all the negativity was beforehand and then afterwards, if I remember correctly as well. Everything was just all positive, and I'll say the count and everything was really high, and everything I remembering was all very positive. One question, I guess, for staff or Ray would be a budget. Are we, that full 25,000 in that kitty is still untouched for this year?
Except for what we've already given.
We
them.
just touched it.
Tonight.
Yeah, I don't believe we have other commitments for it. I mean, it's
Okay.
there generally, it's in Marley's budget to cover city-sponsored events, whether it's First Fridays, Music Market, Windy Wonderland. Yeah, it's all within that budget, so I suggest that we don't spend the whole budget.
This will leave us with $3,500 left in that line item.
Yeah, so just know that.
Councilor Moore.
So,
And then Sandy, I got you after.
I don't know, is there a way to monetize like the economic impact to the city by having this event in a roundabout way?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, the reports that we have
Yeah.
really do take a look at that.
Okay.
And I wish that I could spout those numbers right now, but I can't. But yes, I mean,
Like if we were to give you $15,000, is more than $15,000 coming back to our community or businesses or people or?
yes, you're getting the year over year, Marley can correct me if I'm wrong, was over 200% difference. So you're getting people, and with those reports, we can tell when they come in, where they're coming from, when they come in, where they're stopping. So you can tell when they go into restaurants and retail. But yes, and in all of the events that I do out, that is something that I take a look at, and it is bringing all these people into Troutdale is helping your community with people spending dollars. I mean, that's the objective, is to get people here and get them to spend and to stay, and then to talk about their great experience so they bring their friends in.
Yeah, I believe last year Marley came at the end of the season and gave a report, and it even broke down how many minutes people were staying inside the city at the event and around the event. So it was, I can see where that would translate to dollars reinvested back into the community and back into the local economy that we have here.
Yes, definitely. I should know those numbers off the top of my head, but I don't today.
Councillor Glantz.
I have a question. What is the total budget for the event, and where does most of that money go? I assume you have a fee, you and staff to help run it. Where does the rest of the money go?
It goes into, this is a very slim budget event. But if you think about things like those shuttles that bring people in, the marketing, the signage, all of the artists pay a fee to come to the event, and that helps with the jurying, that helps with some of those expenses. But even adding additional porta potties and the garbage and the labor, the overnight security, there are fees, and we do our best to, first of all, make those fees as small as possible, but then we also go out into the community and try and find in-kind donations to cover most of that. But there are just standard fees with an event. Yes, I am a paid consultant to the festival, so they pay me. There's a data entry person that I feel very sorry for, and she spends a lot of time doing data entry and working with those artists. And there is a stipend for that position, but all the others are volunteers.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions from council? Councillor Caswell.
Yeah, I mean, I'm an artist. I love this. I think it's great that the city can be consistent in its support. And yeah, I just don't think that anybody can lose. So glad you're here.
I did flub on the last agenda item and didn't invite public comment. I am going to invite public comment this time, and just if anybody wants to make a roundabout comment about the two items, that will also be encouraged at this time. So I am going to open it up, just because this is both of these items are big pieces of our community, and I think our citizens need to have that. So first off, I apologize for not doing it the first time around, but I'll do it now and make sure that people can have their opportunity to be heard. And so let's open up public comment on agenda item number 6, a request from the Troutdale Arts Center for the city of Troutdale to be a sponsor for the 2024 Troutdale Arts Festival. And with the consent of council, I would be open to adding another minute to that, 5 minutes, if anybody wanted to make an additional comment for the previous item that we didn't take public comment for. So if that's okay. All right, thank you. So public comments open. If anybody in council chambers wishes to make public comment regarding the item in front of us right now, go ahead and approach the table, state your name and city of residence for the record. And if nobody in council chambers tonight, anybody on Zoom wishes to make a comment, now's the time. Go ahead and unmute yourself and state your name and city of residence for the record. Oh, I'm glad I didn't make a huge mistake.
Well, here I have to say, this is Jeannie from Artistry Northwest, and it was a very productive night and weekend for me, and I'm very happy about the turnout for sure. So I concur.
Great, Jeannie, thank you for making the meeting. Anybody else on Zoom wishes to make a comment, unmute yourself and state your name and city of residence for the record.
Hi, my name is Mallory Goody, and I live in Gresham. I work for Norris and Stevens, and we lease the Columbia Gorge Troutdale Outlet Center. We are also taking over all of their marketing functions. So I would be happy to host and be a part of any of these events that you might need.
Awesome. Thank you, Mallory. We really appreciate the comment. Thank you for taking the time. Anybody else? All right, I'm going to go ahead and close public comment. With that, if there's no other discussion from council, I'll entertain a motion for the request of continuing the request of $15,000 from the Troutdale Arts Festival.
I'll make a motion.
Councilor Whitman.
I move that the city sponsor the 2024 Troutdale Arts Festival in the amount of $15,000.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilor White.
Okay. Councilor Ritma.
Yes.
Councilor Caswell.
Yes.
Counselor One,
Yes.
Mayor Lauer,
Yes.
Counselor White,
Yes.
Counselor Wittrin,
Yes.
and Counselor Glantz.
Yes.
All right, passes. Thank
Thank
you.
you very
It's a great
much.
event and we love it, and it brings so many people to Troutdale that probably wouldn't have ever came. So
Absolutely.
keep it going.
All
Thank
right,
you.
we will, thank you.
All right, we're going to move on to agenda item number 6, a presentation on the Troutdale Destination Strategy Plan. Erica Palmer, our Community Development Director, and Marley Boxler, our Economic Development Coordinator. The floor is yours.
We have our consultants with them.
And team.
Yeah, so we'll do a quick intro and then we'll grab them for that. But thank you, Mayor Lauer and counselors. As you know, I'm Marley Boxler, the Economic Development Coordinator.
I'm Erica Palmer, Community Development Director.
And with us tonight, we have our consultant team who helped us with this. We have Kristen Dahl, who's with Cross Current Collective. Do you want to, I don't know if we want to, how we want to, limited table space up here. But, and then we also have Holly McAfee from Lookout Co. And just a little bit of background with this, as you all know, in 2020, tourism was a responsibility that was formerly held within the Chamber of Commerce, the West Columbia Gorge Chamber of Commerce. And you guys brought it within the City of Troutdale's responsibilities and created the Economic Development Coordinator position to do economic development and tourism. 2020 was obviously a very difficult year for tourism and economic development given the pandemic, but we took that time to really learn about the industry and learn about our region and what the state is doing, and sort of realize where we had gaps in that whole experience and where we needed to create a strategy to move us into the future for tourism in Troutdale. So we applied for grants with Travel Oregon and received a grant to conduct this work that we're going to be presenting on tonight. And we engaged with Cross Current Collective and Lookout Co. to help us with this strategy. And they put together a really good final plan, which is in your packet. And we have a presentation for you tonight. And I also have just a little quick handout so that you can have it in front of you if you don't have your packet. So I'll pass this around and I'll invite Holly and Kristen up to the table. It's the quick Cliff Notes version.
The Cliff Notes, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, those are just pages out of the strategy itself to make sure you had something in front of you. All right, good evening.
Good
everybody.
evening.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. Happy to
Fantastic.
be here.
Very excited to be here.
Yeah. Great. Okay, I'm going to dive in. I think the slides are being fed there through Zoom. And yeah, just thank you so much for taking the time to hear about the plan tonight. I want to just recognize our team. We have Holly McPhee here, who's our brand strategist, works within the collective, also has her own firm called Lookout. And so you'll be hearing a little bit about the sort of marketing strategy and plan that's been a component of the overall strategy. Just a few quick images of the folks who've been working on the team and hard on this project since we started in April of last year. So we've had quite a number of folks involved along the way. And I also want to say thank you to the amazing advisory team that Marley put together at the very outset. Actually, before we even got started, we had commitments from the following folks who are on the screen. And I noticed that quite a few of them are online on Zoom. Stephen Elgart from the U.S. Forest Service, who manages recreation. Lori Harrell is online, as well as I think I saw Jeannie Lynn. I'm not sure if there's any others out there. But anyway, thank you all for being on and also for dedicating your time to guiding this project. A destination strategy is just really a roadmap, as you all know, who you know, those of you who are working or involved with the tourism industry in any way, shape, or form. I mean, you've heard about some great attractions tonight, but it's a very complex ecosystem, and it's not just a real easy through line of an industry. Oh, thank you. And so a strategy is really helpful for any kind of a community to help pull the threads together from all those different sectors and touch points that create the visitor experience. So overall, if you kind of think about all the players within we call it the tourism ecosystem, oftentimes when we come into a destination, they look a bit like this. And our goal through the whole entire process is to create better communication and understanding really of that ultimate vision of success, where you guys want to be in 15 years is the time frame that we use. And so a big part of our time together at all the different touch points along the process with the advisory team, with our community engagement, it's all about, and sorry, the research, obviously, that's a big piece, but it's all about really fine tuning and creating that overall vision of success. And that's one of the pages in your handout there. I just want to call out, these are 2022 numbers. We don't have the 23 numbers just yet, but probably in a couple of weeks at the tourism conference, we'll hear them. But in 2022, overall visitor spending in Oregon was up to almost 14 billion. So it had made a very quick recovery from the pandemic. And anyway, there's all kinds of detail to that, but I just want to sort of put this in front of you as a reminder of just how big of a component it is for the overall economy in Oregon. And of course, very much so for Troutdale being adjacent to Portland metro region. When we develop strategic plans, or sorry, destination strategies for communities, these are the major components. So oftentimes people think it's all about a marketing strategy, and that's a huge piece of it. My friend Holly here, that's what she does, and it's central to these plans, but tourism is not just about marketing anymore. Communities that are really taking a leadership role in tourism are really looking at the entire management piece of it. So providing that leadership through collaboration, actually developing and implementing a strategy, focusing on systems for communication with their industry, and then actually implementing projects that help develop the visitor experience in the community, market the destination, and provide stewardship, because as we know, the tourism economy, especially here in the Northwest, is the foundation is our ecosystem. It is what we care, what draws people here and what they enjoy. We also use sustainable tourism as a baseline. So this is an old definition, but it still pretty much stands the test of time. Really looking at all the impacts of the particular industry around economic, social, environmental, and addressing the needs of not only the visitors, but also the host community, which is maybe the most important. These are all the main kind of components that are in the plan. So I know you all got this in your packet. I'm sure you've read it from cover to cover in intense detail. These are the major components. Stakeholder, we did some highlights of the research, which I'll share with you tonight. Vision of success, community values, and then we worked diligently to create some strategic areas of focus. And we used what's called the theory of change method to not just write down a bunch of strategies, but to talk about what are those specific outcomes in each of these impact areas, and then work back from there. We also worked with Marley to look at what would happen with that advisory team and what could continue on. And what success looks like. That we have this solid roadmap for the future, that this community and its surrounding organizations and individuals really move forward together, aligned around a common set of priorities, building off of existing and past work. Information is flowing so that the complex challenges as they emerge can be solved, and then people are working together in new ways to accomplish things that they hadn't done before. I'm just going to put these on the screen in front of you. This is from a recent study by an international organization called Destinations International and Destinations Next, and they looked at 700 destination management marketing organizations across the world in 50 different countries right after the pandemic, so 2021. And they asked what were the most important things for the future. And everyone, hands down, agreed that destination alignment was really the #1 thing, which means that if you're going to be developing a tourism economy, it needs to be 100% in lockstep with what your community values and what your community wants. And so that has been a big shift from about 10 years ago, when we were really just focused on marketing and bringing more visitors. Obviously, these other things are critical as well. So this was our process. We did our foundational work kind of over the summer of last year. We did a visitor study, a stakeholder study, and we worked with the advisory team to kind of set the framework. We held a community workshop in October, and that was a larger workshop at McMinimans Thank you for hosting if you're here. And then we really just kind of stepped back from all of those inputs and worked with the strategy team and Marley specifically to develop the strategy itself. And then we kind of workshopped that with the project team. And so here we are sort of at the end, and it's really now time for the strategy to be adopted and kind of move into action with Marley's leadership. Community values. So these are in the plan that you received. They're also in the handout. But this is cornerstone. It's, if you've heard of Simon Sinek's presentation of like starting with why, you know, it's why are we doing this? And really trying to understand what it is your community cares about. We did ask specifically, what are the most important local values of you know, people in the tourism sort of ecosystem, tourism stakeholders. These are some of the keywords that popped up. The bigger the word, the more often it was said. And then we took all the different inputs. Now this is from the plan, so it's a little hard to read on the screen for those in the back, but small town character, care for others, stewardship of our resources. And I think this is really interesting is that thoughtful and human scale development came up quite a bit. People really wanted more walkability and you know, more connectivity and such within the community. And then also just local pride that you know, that we take pride in those things that are local and locally grown. So values are sort of cornerstone, and then the vision of success is really where you start to get into the what, like what do we want this place to look like in 15 years? And it's not a, oh, sorry, this is a quick slide from the stakeholder survey. So this is one of the places we gathered a number of inputs for the vision, where we just really simply asked people what are, you know, some of the biggest opportunities here in the community. And you'll see number one right there is providing more opportunities to experience outdoor recreation. Underneath that is the unified brand and tourism messaging and so on and so forth. So this is just one of the inputs that we gathered. We wrote the vision of success. It's a narrative, so it's 2 pages in the plan. And you know, what we were trying to do, this isn't a one-line vision statement, it's a narrative to be able to say actually sort of what we envision and putting detail to that. So a big piece for folks was kind of this idea of like a jumping off point to greater adventures, that people want to see this as really becoming more of a stopping spot and a launching point for adventures into the gorge and Mount Hood, of course. So we put quite a bit of detail in around that. So many comments around the quaint, vibrant downtown. So a lot of commentary around that. I'll let you all read this on your own time, but you know, kind of that keeping that authentic small town life. And let's see, comfortable, this again, scale and walkable nature. So many comments came up around the river and connectivity. And so that is also put in the vision, which is that we have this beautiful river. Obviously it's a huge draw. We know it's one of the #1 drivers, but how do we create more connectivity from downtown to the river itself? And then also just this idea of continuing to build and grow this tourism ecosystem within the region. Those are, that's the vision. Sorry, I'm not moving forward. Yeah, move the zooming. There we go. Okay, so a few highlights from the visitor opportunity study. Now, we only heard from about 260 visitors. Yeah, so not as many as we were hoping for, but it was summer and we had people stationed out at concerts and events on First Fridays and such, but it was kind of tricky to grab some people. But we did hear from quite a few people. What was surprising was so many of them, 70% said that Troutdale was their destination. It's kind of interesting. And here are some of the other destinations they visited. So many local folks, right, coming from Portland and surrounding areas. So that makes sense, especially at a lot of your events, right? And their primary motivator were local businesses at 40%, interestingly enough. And then if you kind of look between water and land recreation, about 30% were coming out here for outdoor recreation, much lesser extent for cultural activities, but you know, more than water recreation. So, And then when we actually had an open-ended question about what, did you really enjoy while you're here? Number one comments were around Sugar Pine Drive-In. So, so they're a driver for you guys and not something to be, forgotten in this whole conversation. We did ask a question around the importance of things and then what their level of satisfaction was. And so then when you map those things together, what's cool about Troutdale is that everything was over a 3. So you don't have anything, people weren't really upset about anything. But when you start to look at some of those weaknesses and a little lower satisfaction there, I would just point out quality of accommodation. I think that's something that people are thinking about, right? That's a piece of the puzzle. We also asked an open-ended question about what would improve their experience and bring them back. And so we heard quite a few comments actually around more and better ADA parking, more restaurant and retail options. And then there were quite a few comments around traffic congestion and improvement, which maybe that's more event related. And on down the list, you can see that. So those were sort of groupings of open-ended questions. So that there's a lot more that we learned from those studies, but I'm just, we have a limited amount of time here. So within the strategy itself, we have 4 impact areas that we recommend that Troutdale and surrounding communities focus on over the next 5 years. So one is really this idea of becoming the gateway to the Columbia River Gorge. I know it's been around, it's on your sign, but like truly becoming that and becoming a base camp for car-free travel, which is something that is just kind of spiking for ways that people are actually getting out into the gorge and Mount Hood. Increasing the connectivity with the wild and scenic Sandy River while protecting its ecological values. So it's right there, people are coming, but the connectivity is really missing. Improving the vibrancy of the downtown by evolving the visitor experience. There's a whole number of things within that. And then this 4th one is really kind of the foundation of connecting and building your tourism ecosystem. So providing capacity to really build the industry, build the connections and the trust within it. This is the summary page. It's in the back page of your handout. And what we did with this component of the plan is just to kind of lay out all the big strategies across the different impact areas so you can kind of see it at a glance. We're not going to go into too much detail other than just impact area A of becoming the actual gateway. Really, there's a lot of work in this space, right? But how do you develop kind of experiences and services to really serve visitors who are coming and that are launching out and doing their trip into the gorge and into Mount Hood? So all kinds of things, tour operators and gear rentals, and just continuing to build your restaurants and breweries, which I know are already blossoming. And then fostering that greater transportation connectivity. So there's quite a bit of work to be done on really making those connections from the PDX airport, but also Portland to help get people here without a car. You'd be surprised at what a large travel segment that is right now. It also provides a lot of accessibility to people that don't drive. Building relationships, and I'm not going to go into that right now. Architecting the wayfinding and signage system, and then really communicating with visitors. So I'm just going to show you sort of the roadmap for how it looks with the outcomes that we articulated short term. Maybe a few more than we're going to be able to get done in 1 to 2 years, but more visitors are beginning their trips in Troutdale. The priority destination objectives are integrated into local and regional recreation and transportation plans. Visitor messaging and collateral shows how trips can originate from Troutdale. More private and public transit services are originating trips from here. There's places to park, right? So people could even do a lot of park and ride and sort of help eliminate some of the congestion issues that are happening on the historic Columbia River Highway. And most importantly, and I just want to say this too, because I see Tara Lingley's on here from ODOT with the historic Columbia River Highway. As you all know, that will be finished in the not so distant future. So how does Troutdale really position itself and get ahead of that amazing development that will happen? So I'm going to hand things over to my colleague, Holly, who will also talk about just really the importance of the visitor branding and messaging and marketing plan that's really going to also help augment and uplift really every component of this plan, but specifically becoming that gateway.
Great, thanks, Kristen. Yeah. Thank you, counselors, for having us here tonight. You can go to the next slide. So I just have a few slides that are part of a much broader strategic marketing plan. The first thing that we did when we gathered the marketing committee back in, was that October, I think, I always ask my project team, you know, what are the challenges that your town has that we can address with our marketing strategy? So there are a lot of issues. Every town has a lot of issues, but we're just talking for the sake of this presentation, you know, what can the marketing do to help address that? And as you're going to see, you know, some of these are repeat comments from the research that was done and the inputs from the stakeholders. But every single one of these is a challenge that a good marketing plan can address, and a really strong visitor brand. So the first one, we want to be the visitor gateway, but instead we get bypassed on the way to the gorge, okay? So Kristen and I also have been doing work in Sisters, which you think, you know, well, but what do we have in common with Sisters? Well, the same thing happens. People maybe stop for, you know, an ice cream cone at the Snow Cone Drive-In, or they, you know, grab a burger at the saloon, but they don't stay and spend their money there or stay overnight. They go to Sun River or Bend, and that's their base camp for Central Oregon, much like Hood River might be considered a base camp for the gorge instead of Troutdale. So that's a problem we want to address with the marketing. We lack a distinctive visitor facing brand. Now, a city brand was introduced several years ago, but I'm talking about world-class destination marketing, like these 700 organizations that are doing great work around the world, that Kristen referred to, and really using best practice visitor-centered branding. So that's taking, for example, all the great, I guess I'll call them the nuggets from your vision, because a great brand has to be authentic to your community, but it also needs to inspire travelers to come visit and to inspire behavior that you want to have happen. So to visit from certain people when you want them to come, and to do the things you want them to do when you're here that'll sustain your tourism economy. So right now, as you saw in the survey, there's no consistent messaging. Troutdale can even be confused with Portland. And the brand isn't really present in town. Yes, there is some signage with the city logo, but there's no map in the center of town that says, you know, or beautiful banners that say this way to the river, this way to waterfalls, this way to, you know, the ice cream or coffee or beer, you know, whatever it is, all the wonderful things that you have to offer in this great town. We're also lacking just some key foundational visitor communication tools, like a map. So the #1 piece of collateral that is picked up in every visitor center along the gorge is that tear sheet of the map. We are not even on it, okay? It starts at Corbett. And Marley's had the brilliant idea of like transforming that map and kind of having it start and really focusing on Troutdale as this gateway. So like just a simple thing like that, but we can't do that unless we have a brand. All right, we're under-resourced and we lack a toolkit, which means a toolkit is something you use to help people who have more money and resources or big audiences market you on your behalf. Like Sugar Pine, who has 56,000 followers on Instagram. Well, they would love to help promote Troutdale, but we need to make it easy for them. These are the kinds of things we want you to say. This is what we want you to highlight. These are the kinds of images to express our messaging. Okay, let's move ahead. So we created an overall marketing objective for the plan. Establish Troutdale as an easy must-visit destination for Columbia River Gorge visitors. Like Hood River, Vista House, and Multnomah Falls, Troutdale becomes synonymous with an outstanding gorge experience. Okay, you don't go to Mount Hood without visiting Timberline, right? You don't go to Southern Oregon without visiting Crater Lake. Well, you shouldn't go to the gorge without hopefully spending the night in Troutdale. Okay, let's go ahead. Oh, that's okay. This just shows you how we look at messaging strategy. There's short-term and medium-term. In the short term, so 1 to 2 years, because we lack some lodging downtown, of course, we have the wonderful Edgefield property, but a lot of people don't even connect that with Troutdale. And it's not easy in terms, like we've talked about mobility and wayfinding, like it's not easy to get there from here, even through bike paths or anything. So really in the short term, we're going to be talking about, make it a day trip or a must stop or like the launching point on your trip to the gorge. And then the medium term in 3 to 5 years, as we have more lodging, as we can focus on, either a new hotel or short-term rentals, because that's really hot with young travelers, is to stay in Airbnbs, et cetera. We can talk about a base camp, making Troutdale a base camp for exploring the gorge, and Portland. I mean, make it your base for going either way. Okay, let's go to the next one. And then this is my final slide, which is that these are the key strategies, which each have a lot of components under them, but the first one is to refresh the brand. So, make Troutdale synonymous with this outstanding gorge experience and differentiate it from other places, because people have a lot of choices in where they go on vacation, and we really need to make Troutdale stand out. So we need the how we talk about Troutdale, and we need to then build awareness. That's the second point, which is, classically you would think of advertising, but there are just so many other ways to do that, to get in front of the target audiences you want to visit. Marley and her partner in crime, Kevin, have done a great job at launching social following, the social media channels, but we need to be boosting those posts by investing in them and thinking about a content calendar and what we're talking about. Again, these key messages will be used in social media to enhance those channels. The next one is creating impactful content. I already talked about the map, itinerary, stories that all, again, underline our key messages. Leveraging the local business partnerships, I touched on that. And then because signature events are so kind of central to the charm and appeal of your town, both for locals and we, for visitors as well, we just want to make sure we're growing the attendance from a tourism perspective to places outside as well, outside of Troutdale. And one of the things we've talked about is focusing on the more of the suburbs, let's say the Wilsonvilles, the Lake Oswego's, the Beavertons, and not so much Portland, because Portland just there are so many events and there's so much noise out there about events, but let's go to some of the smaller places that are like Troutdale and bring them here. And then industry communications. And I'm going to pass it back over to Kristen to wrap up and talk about the next step, which is how you get this done, building the network and funding sources.
Yeah. And I'm not going to really talk much about it because I realize we're going over our time here a little bit. But just knowing that there's a quarter of the plan that's all about, how you connect and build your tourism ecosystem. And while it might be our very last strategy in the plan, D5, increasing funding for building the tourism economy. I think you have an awesome start here with Marley and her team and her capacity. But I think, just looking for ways, if you really want to succeed and fulfill on that vision, I think, some additional resource going in that direction. And there's some easy short-term wins, and there's some other strategies that might take a little bit longer. But also in this is just really building your network. So we started the process, but how do you continue to build the relationships between all the business owners? There's a lot buzzing right now. And just like creating that platform for connectivity is gonna go a long ways. Connecting those entrepreneurs who are already working in this space. So, okay, that's it. Thank you guys very much for your time. We appreciate it. And we're also here for any questions. I don't believe there's any action required from the council, but I'm here if there's anything.
Can I have the screen back, please, and thank you.
Absolutely.
And then Counselor Glantz. I love that picture, by the way.
Yeah.
Just a second.
Too bad it's not Troutdale.
It's okay, it's part of the, it can be included in our marketing, it's part of our identity as well.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Counselor Glantz.
Yep, a couple questions. I see a lot of definitions in there, but one that I didn't see is, how do we define a visitor? And part of this is going to lead down to a conversation of KPIs, where I look through this and I see that we have budgets, and I see that there's things like cyclists on one page are a top priority. And another one we have, I think it's not millennials, 20 to 30-year-olds coming in couples. But I don't see any place on here where in TikTok, when that's their primary social media. And is, from what I can tell in looking through the link that was provided for the budget worksheet and the KPI examples, the only thing that we're judging the success of this on is basically interaction with social posts, likes and follows, that kind of a thing, which seems a little concerning that we should be able to have some other kind of metric to judge how we're doing and be able to create it. And part of that is I'm also a little concerned that we're trying to do too much with too little, where we've got, one page, here's all the people we're going to target, all the experiences we're going to target, all this other kind of stuff. I'm concerned that by trying to be everything to somebody, don't actually make that impact of being something to somebody, if that makes sense.
Sure, I can address that if that's okay, Kristen, because it sounds like it's mostly marketing oriented. In the longer marketing plan, which is available to you, we identify specific target audiences that we'll be going after. As you mentioned, it's there are 3 main target audiences. There are couples without kids, there are families and retirees, and then there's a whole section that intersects with that, which are niches like river recreators and hikers and stuff like that. And in terms of, so those are the audiences we'll be going after. So we won't be going after everybody. We'll be talking, and then there'll also be geographies that we target based on the amount of money we have to advertise and boost our social media. In terms of KPIs, key performance indicators, every time we do a marketing plan, there is actually along with the budget spreadsheet, there's a key performance spreadsheet, which shows impressions in advertising, engagement on social, visits to the website, et cetera, et cetera. So every, number of brochures distributed, et cetera. So those are included, but they're available to you. What was the other part of the question?
You had asked about the definition.
Oh, the definition. Oh, do you want to talk about that?
Sure. Yeah, it's from an economic impact standpoint, it's somebody who's traveled more than 50 miles away. But if you're just looking at increasing your bottom line, your economic activity, you're still able to go after people who are coming from Portland. That's how they technically define a visitor.
Did you say 50 or 15?
50 F50.
50, F0.
Yeah, it's a little late for me.
Yeah.
The kids are usually asleep.
And also to your point of doing too much, the plan is aggressive, but I feel like what we did was really focus in the first the first year is really building the foundational tools. So it's brand, update the website, get our key messages out to our partners, and get that map done. That's very doable.
And I do want to clarify, right, with Commissioner, my glasses.
Councilor Glantz.
Glantz.
You're referring to the budget that is specific to the marketing strategy. Just to clarify.
There was a link in one of the slides that said for our KPIs, click here. And it took me to the name, it's a Google spreadsheet, Troutdale marketing budget and calendar. And one of the tabs is metrics KPI sample form.
Find out what you're looking
at.
at.
I can follow up and look at that.
But either way, the document you found and are looking at, you're looking at specific to marketing. So I would recommend looking through the overall strategy. There's indicators of success for each impact area that are beyond social media hits. So that's a marketing metric. Is that clear?
Is there an example of one?
Another KPI? Yes. So in the full plan, and I could do a screen share if you would like, but there's an opening page for each of the impact areas. So for impact area A, that is about becoming more of that gateway and launching point for the car-free destination. Here we go. So page 15, key measures. So what would success look like? And sorry, these are KPIs. We don't label them as such, but number of transit and shuttle routes originating in Troutdale, number of gorge passes sold at the visitor center, number of businesses that support the outdoor recreation experiences located in Troutdale, number of Columbia Gorge Express trips originating in Troutdale. So there's a bit more heavily leaning towards the carbon component, but there's key measures identified in each impact area that you would be looking for if you were making progress in these areas.
Okay, yeah, my page 15 has examples of that creative.
I think she's in the marketing plan. Maybe, could we follow up with you after and make sure you have all the right materials?
Yeah, you could share your screen and show.
So this is, this is page 15 of the destination strategy overall. And I can whiz you back to the cover page just so you can see it, so you know which plan. So within the strategy, you'll find a link over to the destination marketing plan. So it's the marketing plan is a component of the overall strategy. So this is what the cover looks like.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Any other comments or questions from council? Councilor White?
I read in the packet, you know, that getting more public forms of public transportation to bring people into the city, and I'm wondering, we're about to lose our bus that goes to Glen Auto Park, which also ties into the river there, and Sugar Pine. You know, is that something we should be fighting to keep? I mean, it's down because of low ridership. So I don't know how you fight to maintain that.
Well, I think you should, but Marley also, would like to share about the grant?
I can sort of talk on that really quickly. TriMet, one of the things that TriMet looks at, I mean, they provide transit operations for the Portland Metro, and when they're looking at their ridership numbers, they're comparing us to the city of Portland, and Troutdale is never going to compare to the city of Portland when it comes to ridership levels in transit. We know we're a small town and that we're not going to have the same numbers. In addition to that, I don't think that there's a lot of people that know that they could take a bus to Glen Auto Park, which is one of 2 locations in the entire state that has lifeguards at a river recreation site. And so like we haven't done a great job of communicating that message with people, that this opportunity exists for them, where they could get on that bus and how it could take them to Glen Auto Park to be able to utilize. So, and you know, is it us or is it TriMet who's responsible for doing that kind of marketing for those specific things? TriMet's mission is really focused on job centers and employment taxes pay for their budgets. And so they don't focus their mission on outdoor recreation. And we know outdoor recreation is a huge draw for our area and for the Portland Metro. And so there's this disconnect between TriMet's mission and the overall like objective of transit and wanting to connect people with outdoor recreation. Knowing this and knowing what was said in our plan and how we have a strategic impact area that talks about our connection with the Sandy River and with the Columbia River Gorge, I applied for a grant for a Sandy River shuttle feasibility study that could connect our Troutdale attractions like McMenamins Edgefield and our downtown with the Sandy River. So we're going to be spending the next year studying that and coming up with a feasibility analysis that looks at what that could look like. And I know that we have partners with state parks and Forest Service and ODOT that are all really excited about this grant opportunity that we've been given to pursue this. That's also going to tie in with our downtown parking study that we're going to be conducting this summer. So we're going to be doing a lot of studying around this topic and, you know, how can we improve that system? And one of the reasons why we received that grant was because TriMet was proposing to cut this service. And so if TriMet's not going to provide this service, then I think that we need to be prepared to see what it would look like if we were to pursue a different option. If you look at Bend in the Deschutes River, they've got a shuttle service that you can rent a tube and hop on a bus and go float down the Deschutes River. Is that something that we want to have in Troutdale? And so that's what we're going to be looking at. And I do think it's something that is really concerning that we're losing that TriMet service. And the service that we are receiving or that's being increased is focused on the job centers, which is great for certain things. But, you know, there are things that we are losing in that arrangement.
Yeah, the clock is ticking on that one, so
Mhm.
we're gonna do something we better decide as a group. And I think, you know, I know the Parks Advisory Committee is also looking at fee parking at Glen Auto Park. And so I think that would increase the ridership as well. Now, they spent a lot of money to get that bus in there. And I know the drivers like it because that's where they take their break.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a perfect setup, and I hate to see it go away.
Yeah, I would love to, if you know, if that's not, I know that one of the reasons that TriMet doesn't love that service is because of the conflicts with Sugar Pine Drive-In and how the drive-in overlaps with the bus line and the congestion that's down there, and it just makes it really difficult during the summer months. But I don't think that we've pursued all of the different options that could make something like that work more feasibly, like a 3-way stop at the entrance to Glen Auto Park, for example, on the historic Columbia River Highway that could allow left-hand turn movements that currently aren't able to happen if historic Columbia River Highway is backed up. So that, you know, the parking study, we're including Glen Auto Park in the parking study that we're going to be doing this summer. So we'll have some really better data on what, you know, what is occurring out there. But that's something we're going to be working on a lot this year.
And when you talk about more access, are you referring to the work that's in progress, you know, the Drover's Trail and Chuck Chuck Trail that are coming?
The access from downtown to the Sandy
Yeah.
River. Yeah, that was, you know, it's identified in the town center plan, and that's some of the areas that it was pulled out of. But really, when we were surveying the visitors, they were, you know, looking for those better connections. And then when we were serving our stakeholders too, we know there's a lot of people who are going to the Sandy River and then leaving the Sandy River, and they're bringing multiple cars, and they're not necessarily interacting with our downtown. We don't have any wayfinding signage that says shops and amenity, you know, all these attractions this way. And so what are the things that we can do to create a better system where people can walk or bike or ride a shuttle and connect these places and make it more of a cohesive destination?
They're finding the river.
They're finding the river.
It's packed.
And they're finding places to park all over the sides of the road.
Yeah.
And yeah.
The word's out on the Sandy River.
Yeah. Yeah, well, definitely for the Portland
I think what
locals,
needs to
that's
happen
for
is
sure.
a way to, you know, organize that, so it's more user friendly.
Yeah, well, and to your point, the people who are finding the river are the people who live in the Portland metro. I wouldn't say that our tourists to the area are finding the river or experiencing that. And that's because we don't have a system set up. Like right now, you need 2 cars, you have to have a plan, there's gotta be more than 2 people, you've gotta have a whole thing figured out for how you can do this. And if you're traveling to that area, you're not gonna opt into that. However, Bend with the Deschutes and Tumalo Creek float, they do a great job of attracting tourists to use that service, so.
It'd be great if the city could somehow, we used to have the river trails that was rented rafts and kayaks. And you saw the schools and the church groups and the tourists, because it was an organized, everything was laid out for them. All they had to do was show up.
Yeah.
And that's, I'd like to see us get back to that. And I think it helps improve the quality of the river as well, to have those kind of groups floating down it. Because right now it's kind of a free-for-all, and it's not for everyone.
It's kind of a free-for-all.
Yeah, it's really crazy out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it gets pretty crazy at times.
Yeah.
But, thank you, that was a good presentation.
Part of that feasibility study is a question that is hopefully going to be or could be asked about a mass transit system, not just recreationally, but just a mass transit system within the Troutdale borders that we operate, similar to like what Sandy has. Or is that out of scope for what
no,
that grant?
I would say that that's in scope. I think that what we would be focusing on more for that is where there are gaps within existing services. So the industrial and job centers have this increased level of service now. And so one of the things that we're looking at is where are the gaps between our attractions, like our downtown, the outlet mall, the URA site, if that were to develop in the future, the Edgefield, you know, Edgefield, the Sandy River, 1,000 Acres, looking at where these larger attractions are and where those disconnects exist. Yeah.
Okay. Any other comments or questions from council? I'm going to open it up to public comment on the presentation. Let's do it. Public comment's open. Anybody on Zoom this time wishes to make comment on the above or the presentation, agenda item number 6, presentation on the Troutdale Destination Strategy Plan. Go ahead and unmute yourself and state your name and city of residence for the record. Anybody in council chambers tonight wishes to make a comment? I can't tell if he's taking his jacket off to get ready to approach the table, or
I got to do it.
I'm gonna just ask just to make room for him and see. Thank you. Or just get comfortable and lean back a little further. I wasn't sure.
Good evening, Mayor Lauer, city councilors. Just one comment. We were talking about
Name?
TriMet. Tanny Stephenson, sorry, Troutdale resident. I just want to make a comment about TriMet. We hear about losing service, and we pay significantly more than most of the other cities in the region. We pay millions a year to TriMet, and we get 1.5 bus lines, and they want to scale that back. And I think we should be looking at either getting additional service or cutting their funding, because we're really not getting what we're paid for, and we're subsidizing everybody else, including Portland. Thank you.
Thank you, Tammy. Appreciate it. Anybody else in council chambers? Nope.
Can
All
I
right.
say one thing I forgot before you close?
Are you gonna invite more public comment on what you're gonna say?
No.
Then let's close the public comment, and now you can make your comment.
I
Thank
just
you.
wanted to recognize Marley and just say what an asset you have here in Troutdale.
Yes,
You know, we do this work all over the West, and it's rare to find somebody who's a planner who also
Yes,
understands
it is.
marketing in this space of doing this work. So it's awesome to be able to work with you, and also good job on providing leadership for this whole thing. So thanks.
You can't have her.
Oh, yeah, think about that.
I know, I was like, no.
No other comments or questions from council? All right, thank you very much. Thank you, Erica, I appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, ladies. All right, let's move on to agenda item number 7, Gresham Fire and Emergency Services Report on Fire Services. Chief Lewis, Gresham Fire and Emergency Services, welcome to our humble council chambers.
Report chief on the top of the agenda.
I'm from a small town. I enjoy the opportunity. It brings back a lot of memories. So,
Yeah.
Mayor Lauer, members of council, thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. One little thing that we haven't really announced worldwide yet is we have changed our name to Gresham Fire Department and away from Gresham Fire and Emergency Services. Even your city manager's given this puzzled look like, how come I didn't know?
It says it right here, Ray.
Yeah.
I just got this evening, sir.
So we, not everything we do by democratic vote, but we took it to the membership and said, do you like the old name or would you like to change? And generally, if you ask somebody who we are, oh, you're the fire department. The rest of it is left over from the early 80s when Gresham went through a process where everything had to have 3 names or 4 names, I guess. It was before I got here. So we went to a new logo. Again, asking the membership, the employees what they wanted. They came up with this logo, came up with the name, and our newest ladder truck, which I'll have a picture of in a little bit. We talked about changing color schemes. We've had red fire engines with a white top since 1982, I think. So if you look around the region, everybody's got that. So as long as you don't have something made and painted, there's an opportunity for change. And we won't ask the taxpayers to go back and draft the old engines with the gray top. So again, thank you for the opportunity to be here. I'll talk a little bit about what happened in 2023. So it's the 24 annual report. Maybe it's the 23 annual report. I don't know. But if we could have the next slide, please. So these are your calls for service for the last 10 years. And They go up, they go down, they go up a little more, they come down a little bit more. From 2021 to 2022, your calls went down 112. And these are calls within your city limits, and then another 64 in 2023. Across our service delivery area, calls for service keep not kicking up. And to be responsive to that, because we're not getting any more resources, we're not adding fire stations, we're not adding fire engines. In the 21 years I've been here, we've added 1 2-person rescue that runs out of Station 74 on Halsey. Other than that, we're running out of the same 6 fire stations. We do share a fire station with the city of Portland. There's a 2-person rescue in there as well that wasn't here 20 years ago. But other than that, we're running with the same resources that we've had for the last 30 years. So in order to manage that growth a little bit, we look at those calls that we used to go to first. But us being there really isn't changing the patient outcome. Some of those lowest of acuity calls, we said, if there's somebody else to go, we're not going to go on those calls. Keep ourselves available for the more critical calls, the calls that can really make a difference. So in doing that, you see our calls trend down just a little bit. Again, 64 calls within your city over last year from the year before. And I think we probably made that up in January during the winter storm event, and we'll make up for it next year.
Mm-hmm.
So then there's the question of what kind of calls do we have? Blue is 2022, orange is 2023. So a little bit of change. There was talking about changing across the service area EMS calls, and your EMS calls were up from one year to the next. But your fires and then your good intent calls were down. So we look at these calls across 9 service areas, and this is based on the National Fire Incident Reporting System, or NFIRS as they call it. And in NFIRS, there are that many different choices for calls for service. And unlike the last presenters, they gave really good PowerPoint slides, and mine are really bad PowerPoint slides. In fact, I made the comment that this slide isn't really meant to be read, because it's just an example of how many different choices when we fill out our report there are. So if you go to the next one, please. I zoomed in a little bit, and for your example here, there are 8 different types of structure fires that we can fill in. There's mobile property used for a fixed use. So they differentiate mobile property in a fixed use versus mobile property for a mobile use, such as an office trailer. It has wheels on it, it's mobile, but it's fixed, it's in one spot. There's 8 different mobile vehicles. There's 7 types of rescues, 5 different water or ice related rescues. So there's lots of different choices. So we can break down that data infinitely, another word.
Mm-hmm.
But that's all based again on the national system. Next one, please. In addition to that, there's how many different places we can go. There's hundreds of different choices of where we were. Is it an auditorium? It's a concert hall, but different places have movie theaters or churches. There's 3 choices, or 3 under 1 for a funeral parlor, a morgue, or a crematorium. Those are all lumped into one. We have 2 crematoriums in Gresham. Who would have thought? Mm-hmm. So there's lots of different choices there. And then the green ones are the actions taken, the different kind of things that we do after we get there. And if we have the next slide, please. And this zooms in a little bit more on the property uses. Bowling being different than billiard center or a pool hall. Arcade. I don't know that video arcades exist anymore. They were a big thing when I was in high school, but there's not too many of them. Swimming facilities. So there's just a bunch of different ways that the federal government breaks down the data and looks at it. And then we're obligated to go through page after page and scroll through and pick. And if my guess is right, our firefighters know a couple that they use all the time. They don't get into the minutia too much, but those are the different opportunities for calls for service to break down those calls that we responded to in your community in the last year. And those are 351 in your community. And again, if you want to know the infinite little detail, we have that for you, but I can't imagine you wanted it, therefore I'm not presenting it to you tonight. Next slide, please. So your service is provided primarily from Fire Station 75. I think you all know where it's at 600 Cherry Park. It's across from your post office. It was built in 1975, and I've been in a lot of fire stations. I've been doing this full-time for 41 years now, and that's the dumbest station I've ever been in. And I say that with the utmost respect to the architect. If you are in the day room where they watch TV, the computer terminals are there where they do their instant reporting, you have to go through the bay to get to the kitchen. And you have to come out of the kitchen and across the bay to get to the bunk rooms or the restrooms, and out of the kitchen or the day room to go to the officer's quarters or his little office in the front of the building. So there's 4 little corners with the bays down the middle. Never seen such a fire station before, especially one that was purpose built that way. This didn't used to be a volunteer station that they added on to. They kind of morphed into that. It was designed and built this way. Again, strangest thing I've ever seen. So in the last 30 years, we've gone from about 650 responses out of that station to 1,764 last year. And again, about 1,350 of those were yours. The other 400 or so went to other communities, either into Gresham, Fairview, or Wood Village. And occasionally we'll leave this station and go and help our neighbors in Corbett. Likewise, when we have a call, we tie everybody up. Corbett comes down and they'll either staff this station or the station up on Kane. Our relationship with Corbett is about as good as you'll ever see between a volunteer fire department and a paid department. We have a lot of respect for them. They do a lot of great things. We spend a lot of time on that river you were talking about a little while ago, moving from either their call or our call, and we work seamlessly out there. I'd like to make one comment about the river if I can. This will be my public service announcement. If you float the river, never tie yourself to your floating device. That will get you, that will cause you to drown. Even if you're wearing a life jacket, if your float is floating away from you and you get hung up, it will pull you into the water and you will drown. Likewise, don't tie the inner tube that's carrying your beer to the inner tube that's carrying you. It also will pull you under and cause you to drown. So don't tie yourself to your inner tube, and don't tie your inner tubes together, because it's a dangerous mix. So that's my public service announcement for this evening.
I'll add a little more to it. Don't drink and float.
That is beyond my control.
That's beyond all
But
of us.
that is also very good advice. We have next slide, please. So this is the overhead view of Fire Station 75. As I'm sure you know, that fire station is owned by Fire District 10. Our contract with them to provide them fire service allows us to use this fire station, the Fire Training Center, which is at 194th and Halsey, and then Fire Station 76, which is at 302nd and Dodge Park. They built a new station about 5 or 6 years ago. This station, if you'll notice, we staff it with 3 people, which we talked about. There's 4 parking spaces in the back, so we have to shuffle cars parked out front, out back, or off the street at shift change. To the southeast corner, there's a second roof there. There's a little outside garage that was built to house the water rescue tow vehicle. So it's a Ford F-450, I think, with a Knapheide body on it that we bought down here at Knapheide in Troutdale, and had those 2 pieces put together. That was bought with a Urban Area Security Initiative grant. The rigid hull inflatable boat that used to be staffed or stored here, ran out of the station, was bought with an Assistance to Firefighters grant. And currently they have a purpose-built rescue like jet ski. It's an all aluminum watercraft that will draft in about 4 inches of water, so we can run it up the Sandy River in August when the water is at its lowest. Turns out that is the best investment we have for Sandy River for water rescues. That was made possible by a Aspire grant through the state of Oregon. So all of our water rescue resources have come from other people's money. We all pay the taxes, it goes someplace else, but here's an opportunity to bring those taxes back to the local emergency services. So we're really happy with how successful we've been with that. But as I mentioned, we have this new watercraft. It seats two. It pulls along a sled that you can put the victim in once you go out and make those rescues. It launches so much faster. We can launch down by Glenado and traverse the river, upriver, much quicker than we can drive with a boat all the way to Oxbow and then come down. So that's really made a difference in our water rescue response. With that, we've moved the bigger boat and the bigger truck to the training center down on, it actually addresses off San Rafael, and keep the smaller water rescue craft in this station, which opened up that garage, and we've moved our gym equipment for those firefighters out there. Prior to that, we had gym equipment where it should have been a locker room and also in the apparatus bay. All the firefighter standards say don't put your workout equipment in your apparatus bay because it turns out diesel particulate is bad for you. It's a cancer-causing agent, carcinogen, and they say you really should get those things out of there. So we were able to move our workout equipment out into that garage because we have that smaller water rescue craft in the bay now. A couple notes on the building itself. It was built in 1975. It doesn't meet any of the ADA regulations. While most of our firefighters, maybe all of our firefighters, don't have physical disabilities and they don't need that, it's still a public building. So if the kindergarten kids come to visit and one of them happens to be disabled on walker or wheelchair, they need to be able to get around. We can't limit their access as well. Different communities have taken that further than others. For example, if you build a 2-story station in the city of Portland, that station will have an elevator. Not all communities read the ADA the same way or require elevators to the living quarters and fire stations. Either way, if we have a birthday party that we host there for an elementary school and grandma's there, she can't use the restroom facilities. Again, improper space for workout equipment. We have moved it out into the garage, which is an improvement. It's not a conditioned space, I think is the building code word for it. It's not heated, it's not air conditioned, but they do have electric heaters out there. We've made one change since the slide was made up a couple of years ago. It used to be that if you took a shower, the only restroom facility in the shower area was a urinal. Women firefighters had difficulty being able to use the restroom in the same room they took their shower in. So we took the urinal out, we had a plumber come in and do it. We didn't do it. And install a regular toilet in the shower room. Again, we're making do with a building that really is beyond its useful life. And as you can tell by this photo, it's a really small footprint, not really enough room there. We couldn't replace that fire station in the same location. But we do what we can for it. We recently, because it's a stupidest fire station I've ever seen, because I haven't said that earlier, the right side and the left side, east and the west side, have their own HVAC systems, and we replaced both of those just a couple of years ago so that we can have conditioned space. So things we know now that we didn't know when that fire station was built is the living quarters should have positive pressure. The air pressure there should be greater than it is in the apparatus bay so that those diesel particulate and the benzene and the other things that come out of diesel exhaust don't make their way into the living quarters. That building needed some tender loving care, which included new door closers, a couple of doors replaced, door seals and such to keep that particulate out. We're also going through all of our fire stations, and this will be the first one that gets done. We've hired a designer to come in and design a vehicle bay ventilation system. These buildings don't have them. Let me rephrase that. Other than the new building, none of them have them. The 6 stations we operate don't have them. It's not unique to this building. So that ventilation system will have negative pressure. It will suck air outside all the time. And with that positive pressure in the bay, in the living quarters, negative pressure in the bay, it should keep the diesel particulates as well, the gases that come from a diesel engine out of the living quarters and be healthier for the firefighters that live in that station. Again, that design and engineering work's been done. It's ready to go out for bid, and this will be the first station we do with that. You may have seen a little thing on the news a couple of weeks ago about radon in our fire stations. This station was the one that had it first. We had OSHA come in and do a site visit of this particular station. We've had them in other stations over the years. They offered to do air sampling if they could. The captain that manages that station says, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. They went back and said, hey, can we do that? They don't do it themselves, they contract it out. They had the radon level checked, radon level was high. With that, out of abundance of caution, we moved them out Thursday afternoon. Friday, a local company out of Fairview was in, put in 2 radon mitigation systems because it's the stupidest fire station I've ever seen. And we needed one on each side of that apparatus bay to get the radon out from under the slab. And then we came back a couple weeks later and we tested, and lo and behold, we have radon in the garage that they use for their workout area. So we went ahead and threw one in there as well. Like many things in life, you don't know what you don't know until you found out you don't know it. So in 2019, we had somebody come in and do structural inspections, similar to like a home inspection before you sell it. This person does light commercial buildings as well as residential buildings. Their recommendation was we have station 7-4, which is on Halsey next to the training center, tested for radon because it had a basement and a crawl space. We had it tested, the radon was high, we put a mitigation system in, we had retested, it was taking care of the issue at that station. The recommendation wasn't to do all the other stations, so we didn't do the other stations. Again, we don't know what we don't know. After this station was done, we did all the stations, including the fire training center. This station's radon was 3, not quite 4 times as high as the recommended level before you do something about it. We had the same problem with fire station 7-4 in 2019, and we also found radon in our fire training center. Now the radon in the fire training center, you could have pushed off saying people don't live there, they're not 24 hours. If you were there on a regular basis, as if it was your life, it was as if you were smoking a pack of cigarettes a day. And we figure even if you're only there for 8 hours, I don't know how many, 20 cigarettes in a pack still? I think that's what it was last time I knew anything about it. Anyhow, we don't want people, even if they're only there for 8 or 10 hour work days, to have that exposure. So we ended up putting 2 mitigation systems in at the fire training center as well. So we've been through all the stations. Everyone that had radon above the limits has mitigation systems in now. We've put in station monitors that are monitored via Bluetooth or Wi-Fi. In the city facilities, people keep track of that, because if you left it to firefighters, every time they went by it, they would push a button and say, oh no, it's 4.4 right now, as opposed to the 1.2 it's been for the last 30 days. So the mitigation systems are in place. We did water testing looking for lead in the water. In 2019, we found 2 stations with lead in the water. This station was not one of them, and it is still does not have lead in the water. If you care about water chemistry, the Portland Water Bureau did something to change their water, which made it the corrosion protection, which made the lead show up far less often. So even stations that had lead in the water before we put filters in are now below the reportable quantities of lead in them. So we've made those improvements as well. Next slide, please. So the other thing that's made the news now that radon has kind of quieted down a little bit is ambulance response times. We've talked about ambulance response times in our quarterly meetings with Councilor White and City Manager Ray Young, as well as the other cities that we contract with. for over a year now. So AMR can't hire paramedics fast enough. There's a vast shortage of paramedics throughout the country. It's not just Oregon. Oregon's is a little tougher because Oregon is one of 3 states, I believe, with California and Florida, that require you to have an associate's degree to be a paramedic. Most states don't require that. We have very good paramedics. I was a paramedic for 21 years before I got here. Everybody that works for me is a better paramedic than I ever was. And that's a good thing. But they can't hire them fast enough. The contract with the county, let me back up a little bit. The state decided that counties will assign ASA, ambulance service areas. So that privilege goes to the county. As a charter city, Gresham, you couldn't start your own ambulance company for 911 calls unless the county says you could. And that was a surprise to me, where like I said, I spent a long time, 20 years in Ohio before I came out here. And charter cities could make their own decisions. The state does not give the local communities that decision. They leave it with the county. The county has one ASA, and that is countywide. They manage it. They contract for ambulance service. AMR has had that service next to forever. But the contract says they will run 2 paramedics in an ALS, which is Advanced Life Support ambulance. Without enough paramedics, the number of ambulances they can put on the street contracts. So something that didn't exist a couple years ago is a code called LZ, which is level 0. That's how often there was no ambulances available. We will sometimes see LZ3 or LZ4 or LZ8, meaning we're 8th in line waiting for an ambulance because there's so many calls stacked up ahead of us. We'll give them a little bit of a pass for the winter storm when I saw LZ15. So AMR can't meet their contractual requirements, and the county is thus far unwilling to change those requirements. You can have 2 EMT basics on a basic life support ambulance. That class is an EMT basic, is taught at through Mount Hood Community College. I think they have 2 courses a year, and it's a good way to get into the business. They staff 3 or 4 basic life support only ambulances now with 2 EMTs. They take the very lowest of acuity calls. They're taking calls that we would not normally go to. But the problem with that is sometimes people have really extended response times, like 45 minutes, an hour. We had one person in Fire District 10, his wife had a displaced fracture of the ankle. Her foot was turned sideways because her ankle was broken so far. Over 90 minutes to get an ambulance on the scene. With those long calls, they're supposed to call back every 10 minutes, every 15 minutes and check in with the patient. They lost track of that patient and didn't make those calls back. So there's a shortage of paramedics, which means there's not enough ambulances on the road, which means we have longer response times for the sheriff department, which is your police agency, and for us. We have taken people to the hospital in fire engines, battalion chief's rigs. We've never commandeered a TriMet bus for that purpose yet. There was one call a couple of months ago where we had a fire engine on the scene. A 15 or 16-year-old girl who was pregnant was shot in the stomach, and there was no ambulance coming. So by the time they got her packaged up and done what they could do on the scene, it's been 20 minutes already. They're ready to lay her in the back of the fire engine and take her to the hospital when an ambulance broke loose and came there and took care of that call. That's probably the worst one I know of in our response area, but certainly we have other examples where we've not had ambulances coming and we've taken them to the hospital ourselves. It's not the right way to do it. I'm not AMR's mouthpiece. I'm not their spokesman. I'm not bargaining on their behalf. Certainly their paramedics like the 2 paramedic system. AMR says their parent company, Global Medical Response, has 260 some of these contracts nationwide. The one in Multnomah County is the only one they hold that requires 2 paramedics in an ambulance. those really critical calls, we send a paramedic on our fire engines or our ladder truck. Every apparatus we staff every day has at least one paramedic on it. Those critical calls we go to, we meet them there. They're there first. We're usually there first, even more so lately. And that provides 2 paramedics for paramedic care. When we have a critical patient, they have a critical patient, our paramedic, and sometimes 2, will ride in the back of the ambulance with them to the hospital. Their second paramedic is always the driver. Not once has my EMT basic firefighter driven their ambulance so they can be in the back with the patient. I don't think they should renegotiate the contract and start from scratch. I think they should pause the requirement and give AMR a chance to catch up. And it's not just them. Our last recruitment, we had 170 some firefighter applicants for really need paramedics. We had 8 paramedics apply. By the time we got to hiring, a couple of them washed out for other reasons. Several of them we offered jobs to, and they said, no, thank you. They've taken the job someplace else. So we interviewed 170 some people. No, we took 170 some applications. We interviewed about 108 through screening interviews. We took 30 to executive interviews. We hired 6 of them. We could only hire 1 paramedic. There's just not that many out there. And again, that's nationwide. So the city of Portland and the city of Gresham met with I've been told that the way to please people and to show that you're genuine is to call them by their name. And Commissioner, I believe it's Marin or something close to that. I'd be embarrassed if she was in the room with us. She's made a proposal that the county chair change the rule requiring 2 paramedics on a temporary basis. The city of Gresham and the city of Portland each passed those resolutions just last week. Fire District 10, they called a special meeting and passed a similar resolution on Saturday. When we were having these meetings and planning the resolutions, County Chair Vega Peterson was quoted in the news as saying, "I won't be bullied." We have a great relationship with the county through so many things. A lot of the things that Gresham does as a city are hand in glove with the county. And by no means do we base everything that happens that's good between us and the county on this particular issue. But on the slide, you'll say who can make changes. Dr. John Jew is the medical director. He has the authority under the ambulance code to make a change for an emergency situation. He chooses not to do so. According to Commissioner Marin, the next person that can make that change is Chair Vega Peterson as the Chief Employment Executive for the county. She can tell John Jew what to do. She also chooses not to do so. So like I mentioned, we passed the resolution in Gresham and Portland. We had a joint press conference at Station 31, our shared station with the city of Portland last week. And what's next is there's a resolution that Commissioner Marin has crafted. My understanding is the chair decides what's on the agenda. The chair has not brought that agenda item to the board, and as far as Thursday's meetings, it still is not on the agenda. Now in Gresham, at the end of the meeting, there's council measures and proposals, and a member of the council can make a proposal and get a second, and they'd have to at least have a conversation about it. That doesn't exist at the county, to my understanding. So we're asking, our elected officials are asking for the chair to make a temporary change. Like I mentioned, AMR has been the ambulance service provider for a long time. There really isn't anybody else. Metro West, which was the the Washington County ambulance service provider for a long time. I can't say that they defaulted on their contract, but certainly the county went out for a new contract because they were having problems meeting their obligations. Falk ambulances in Salem, they also have difficulties meeting their requirements. Folk is also throughout Washington, in the Upper Sound area, Everett and stuff, and I understand they have difficulties meeting their contractual obligations as well. So I don't know that there's somebody else that's going to come in here and bid for that contract if AMR doesn't meet it. So they need to figure out how to get their stuff together. And as for what next, we're waiting on the county to decide, but certainly we've made our positions known. And I'll do a 3-minute citizen comment on Thursday when they have their board meeting. So I'd like to stop right now and see if there's any questions about the ambulance service issue that's going on before we get too far away from it.
I will just make a comment, just since we paused for a second, that Ray and I and the other mayors and city managers just sat down and had a meeting yesterday with regards to the resolution. And we were working on a joint resolution from the 3 cities for the rest of the county. And we were working on that language and having something available for our council on the
March
12th, the next council meeting. So, Ray.
I can just add, I've had in communication with AMR, and they agree 100% with Chief Lewis. The county chair is misleading the public in terms of the need and the studies that claim to show that it's necessary to have 2 paramedics. I've done a very quick Google search, and I have found studies directly on the JEMS, which is the Journal of Emergency Medical Services Assessment. There's no outcome difference between whether you have 1 paramedic or 2 paramedics. And as Chief indicated, there's no evidence that there's any problem with the fire departments adding that extra assistance whenever it's necessary. They do it now.
Yeah.
So it's very troubling to them also that this doesn't seem to be real proof of what the best is for our citizens.
Yeah. Any other comments from council? So hopefully, or not hopefully, we will have language to bring in front of you all on the 12th, and we'll deliberate and we'll talk and we'll discuss. And if it's something that we feel strongly about making our position clear, then we'll move forward with that resolution.
I have a question.
Councilor Glantz, thank you.
I listened in on the Gresham Council's work session I think it was last week, the 20th. And one of the things that I believe it was you said that really concerned me was how the maps are drawn in terms of service areas. And the example given was the West Hills of Portland were getting some really slow response rates. So the map was redrawn to include downtown Portland to bring it in for everybody. Will that also, how are the maps currently drawn for Troutdale as opposed, or Fairview as opposed to Gresham in terms of response time?
Councilor Glantz, Mayor Lauer, I appreciate the question. When this county redid their ambulance plan, and earlier today I knew what year that happened and now I don't remember, I'm sorry. When they redid that plan, they narrowed the number of zones they had. They used to have 6 and now they're down to 4. And we are in the East Zone, as they call it now. And I one time heard that figures lie and liars figure. And I don't know if there's any truth to that because I'm not an accountant or a statistician, but I do know if you dilute numbers over a bigger pool, you can get a different answer. So their proposal was to have, I believe, only 3 zones, which would have amalgamated or homogenized our response times in East County in with City of Portland up to about 200 or 205 or 82nd. So the further out you get, and you're at the far edge on the east side, it takes longer for those ambulances to do return trips. So while we do have Mount Hood Medical Center nearby on Stark, most of the hospitals are important. Both the trauma centers are important. The more critical patients go to Portland, they don't necessarily go to Mount Hood. So when those ambulances take a patient to another hospital, then it takes longer for them to get back here. And if they catch another call, a critical call, they have to take that call because it's all based on automatic vehicle locations or GPS locations to pick ambulances. So we wait longer for ambulances out here, and we always have. Our numbers almost never reach exactly that threshold, but they're allowed to not meet threshold across the whole county or in a zone without getting in trouble. And they've always worked on that edge. And like I said, I'm not an AMR spokesperson. I think they need more ambulances on the road, and they need more ambulances on the east end of their response area to service us better. But as I mentioned in the presentation to Gresham City Council, when they made the zones bigger, they were trying to dilute the higher call volume or call response times in where there is more calls for service and more ambulances, so that those outliers didn't stick out. So they did that on the West Hills. They grew, I think that was zone 5, and they made it part of zone whatever, and they diluted, and that zone had fewer calls, therefore fewer resources, and it takes longer to get there simply because of geography to drive up into those hills. So out here, they wanted to do the same thing, and we really put our foot down and said, no, absolutely not. So to go back to when they made that initial changes to their plan, we found out about it the day before and went to the commission meeting and spoke in public comment to have any impact on that ambulance service plan at all. So we're next to AMR, the fire departments are the biggest service providers of EMS service in the county, and we weren't at the table. I would say that we're closer to 2 years, while downtown Portland is probably at 1 year for the really impacts of this ambulance shortage. We've been dealing with it longer because like anything else, if you're closer to the margin, it impacts you more. And I don't care whether it's hunger, poverty, unemployment, whatever it is, the closer you are to the edge, your impacts come first. So in this case, our impacts on the ambulance response times came first. I have not had a conversation or reached out by anybody from the chair's office on the subject whatsoever. So we provide first response, advanced life support in conjunction with their contract with the ambulance provider. We've had no conversations with the chair's office.
Are you guys, is it my understanding that due to the county, like the fire station can't have your own ambulance, or can you?
So the county's ambulance service plan allows AMR to subcontract with fire departments. So, and the chair's office told AMR that they have to reach out to the fire departments. So we had already told them informally that we can't do their business. We don't have enough resources to do our business, to do your business. There's been like I said, I've been doing this a long time, and I wouldn't want anybody to live their life the way I've lived mine, where I think over the time some people live to work. Now you kind of program that way, and now people work to live. When my firefighters come to work, they do a great job, and I have no complaints. But when it's not their work day, they don't want to come back in and work. While we pay them overtime to do so, their time off is more important to them. I used to make fun of work-life balance because I didn't understand it. I understand it now, and I don't begrudge them wanting their time away at all. Family medical leave. When my youngest son was born, I missed 2.5 shifts in the fire station. I was gone a week. That probably isn't the way to do it. And it's not the way we do it now, and I don't think we should go back. So anyhow, we have to order our firefighters to work overtime, or we don't let them go home. We're short a firefighter. Sorry, Bill, sorry, Mary, you can't go home today, even though it was your plan. We need you here. So with that, the only way to get firefighter paramedics to fill that subcontract requirement would be to have them do it on overtime. Now, AMR will pay us enough to pay them. We're not going to get rich off of it, but our firefighters don't want to be here any more than they have to. They're obligated, they're dedicated to their job, they do great work, but when they're not supposed to be here, they don't want to be here, and they certainly don't want to be here doing somebody else's job, such as ambulance services. So yes, they could contract with us. We couldn't choose to do it ourselves, but we could subcontract with AMR. We don't have the resources personnel-wise to do that.
Comments, questions? Counselor Glantz.
Is there, in looking at Troutdale and Fairview and even Gresham, I'm guessing there may be some trends, things like rescues at the Sandy River, things like retirement centers, places that get more calls than would be expected as the norm. And I remember a long time ago, there was a conversation about Troutdale opening up to more retirement and nursing centers. And there were counselors at the time who turned it down because they said those centers use the fire department as a way to lift someone who's falling so that they don't have liability issues and everything else. Is there any way to, or is there any kind of process in place to help control people who might be abusing the system?
That is that's a good conversation probably for somebody that are closer to it than I am. We have people that know the staffing rules for care centers better than I do. So there are several layers, and you can have several layers in one complex where you have true nursing care, and then you have assisted living, and then you have senior apartments. They can all be in the same building. Sometimes you get to transition from one to the other and not even move out of a different room, depending on the facility. So if it's true nursing care, they're supposed to have somebody there to provide nursing care 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. If it's assisted living, it depends on the level of assistance as to what they provide. Their assistance may only be, they bring them medication, or they provide meals or laundry service or whatever that is that somebody's paying for. And again, there are senior living apartments that could be in the same complex that have none. And some people will move into a senior living apartment, and then they will progress to assisted living, and then memory care, and then even nursing care in their golden years, as they say, while they're in those facilities. They are all understaffed to help Mr. or Mrs. Jones up off the floor if they fall. There are mechanical devices that can help with that. We get called frequently for that. We get called frequently to people's homes for that. On occasion, we get there and Grandpa is on the floor, and we find out Grandpa's on the floor because Grandpa's had a heart attack, or Grandpa's unconscious because his diabetes has impacted him or whatever. There's been conversation about should there be a fee? And we kind of run this around the tree a couple of times, and it's hard to build in a fee that you're going to charge the elderly, the sick, and the infirmed. And I see Councilor White's head going up and down. We've had this conversation several times in the last 15 years or so at the user board meetings. While you could, most places don't. Some places have done that. And for them, that becomes a business model thing. Is it cheaper to pay the fee than it is to hire the staffing? And they will play both sides on the middle on that one, I think, and as they do that. I hope that answered your question. Yes, some of those facilities have a lot more calls for service. They also have a lot more people in a concentrated space, which will take us there. They also have people who are older, who are sick, or infirmed, and those kind of people need more help, and we go there more often. I'm sure my Station 75 would love to not go to the one at the corner of Cherry Park and 257th, and they would be happy not to go there, but that would mean everybody's doing well as opposed to and not needing our care. So there's not an easy answer. Every now and then we have to do an educational thing. We have people that go out and they talk to nursing managers and the staff, and we remind them. And we've had a couple of places we've gone to the state with, the state has threatened their licenses for not having enough staff. I wouldn't want to point those out specifically, but you may even know of them. So if it gets real bad, we do go to the state and bring them in to try and straighten them up.
Okay.
Thank
One
you.
last thing. Sorry, Counselor, go ahead.
Oh, I said thank you.
Okay, so my last point is what's next. Thursday morning at the Multnomah County Commission meeting, they have a contingency budget transfer in the sum of about $170,000, where they're going to use that to move up the study of their ambulance plan. So I think that was one of the 4 points that the chair's plan that came out last week, was to study what they're doing. So they're going to transfer money from contingency to the EMS division to yet study their ambulance plan further. So your Gresham Fire Department had a tough year last year. On February 3rd, firefighter Brandon Norbury was at the training center doing hose evolutions, had a cardiac arrest, collapsed there at the feet of his coworkers. If I'm going to have a heart attack, that's where to have it. That is the best care anywhere. And they couldn't save their coworker. Been doing this a long time, 40 years, never had a line of duty death. I've had people that worked for us who have died off duty, but this one happened on duty. Those are tough on organizations. In April of last year, Brian Flowers was feeling sick, not getting any better. His doc sent him to Mount Hood, and he had acute myeloid leukemia, AML. In Oregon, there is a cancer presumption law for firefighters that says if you come to work and you don't have cancer, and you work for a fire department for 5 years, and you develop cancer, and it's very specific, it's not any cancer, but it's cancers that firefighters get at more than twice the rate of the general public, then it comes under cancer presumption for workers' comp. We had a firefighter a few years ago who had breast cancer, no history of it in the family, no markers to think that she would normally get it. It is presumed to be occupational cancer. Same thing for Brian's leukemia. What that does, it takes the fight out of it. We don't have to say, prove it's related to work, because they've got cancer. They got enough to worry about. So we lost 2 firefighters last year. It was a tough year. Our contract with the union expired in July. We're still in negotiations now. Those things are always tense. There's always an undercurrent when those things are going on. The city manager left in December of last year. Our levy failed in May. It's been a tough year at the fire department. We're looking for better things in 2024. Thank you. And this guy here is our new aerial ladder truck. It's a tractor-drawn aerial, AKA a tiller. They call it a tiller because somebody rides in the back end and steers the back wheels. As we get denser and build closer together, and the state in their infinite wisdom says you can build an apartment complex without a parking space for every dwelling unit, and people have to find a place to park. Our streets get more cramped. Parking lots and turnarounds get smaller. The ladder truck that we've had for the last 2 generations, it started in 99, I think was when they bought the first one. While it was a straight truck, it was an all steer. So the wheels in the back steered in addition to the ones in the front. So if you turn the wheel to the right, the wheels in the back would turn to the left, allowing you to turn sharper. Or in fireground mode, you could turn it into fireground mode. That way, when you turn the wheels to the right, the back wheels turn to the right, and it would kind of dog walk sideways. That particular truck requires more maintenance than a normal straight axle ladder truck. Our fleet facilities was well versed in it. They kept it in service. We didn't spend months with it broken down like some other fire departments across the country have. Pierce manufacturer that we buy our fire apparatus from doesn't make that anymore. The demand for it was, too low. It requires quite a bit of training and experience for maintenance, and the demand for it went down. So then we come to this short little guy here, or she, I don't know which, is right just short of 61 feet long, 60 feet 8 inches or something. It goes where that all-steer wouldn't go. It's amazing when you put that hinge in the middle where the ladder is over the rear axle, and then turn the very back on the tiller or on the trailer portion, where they can put that that ladder truck. It will go many places that our old ladder truck won't do. And that's why they're so popular in cities and stuff. That particular one was just shy of $1.5 million. It took over 2 years to get in. If we were to buy that same truck today, and this is a truck because it has a ladder on it and it's a big toolbox, as opposed to a fire engine that carries water and hoses. That truck is over $2 million and 4 years delivery time now. And they're not guaranteeing the price 4 years out. They're saying this is what we think it's going to cost. We may come back to you for more money. And if you choose then not to buy it, that's okay, because we have people waiting 4 years, and someday we'll buy your truck and we'll change the lettering on it.
Did you take notes of that, Ray? Okay, good, thank you.
So that truck went in service in October, I think. I'll be honest, it was down for some warranty repair during the winter storm when we were driving the old truck, and I wasn't disappointed that it wasn't out on the ice the entire time, because it's $1.4 million and we're new at driving it. We brought some very experienced teaching crew down out of Seattle. They taught our guys how to do it, and they made them train the trainers. So we trained up a handful of trainers, and they're training the rest of our crews on how to use the truck. So most of it's about getting there, getting set up in the building. For my entire career, the turntable on the ladder truck was on the back, and how you approach a building with the nose to move the ladder to wherever you want to go is completely backwards to this truck, because the turntable and the base of the ladder is now towards the front, not the back. So it's a steep learning curve. It's a great tool. We'll use it at least 10 years as frontline, and we'll keep it another 10. We'll have it 20 years plus in the city of Gresham. And this is the new paint scheme that I mentioned. We asked the firefighters if they wanted all red, if they wanted to maintain the red with the white top, or go to this. We had a very small group, meaning me and my closest friends, made this the second or the third choice for a paint scheme, and this is what they chose.
She's getting cats out of trees.
You know,
we got tall trees out here.
We do have tall trees. So in my old life, I got in trouble one time. We used to dispatch with firefighters. My job for 3 months was to be the person to answer the phone and dispatch the calls. They called, cat was in the tree. Sorry, lady, we don't do cat calls. We didn't. We did not do animal rescues or cats out of trees. On the third call, on a recorded line, I said, listen, lady, have you ever seen a cat skeleton in a tree? Because that was the old firehouse joke. I was 21 years old, and I'm lucky to keep my job. But here we have rescued cats out of very tall trees out here in your community, as well as the other ones we serve. Next follow-up on equipment is, we spoke to our council last week at the work session. We're going to go back in April for purchase approval. We have 3 fire engines that were bought in 2014. Used back then, it was 11 to 14 months on delivery. Now they're 27 to 30 months. And that's if you buy one the way they make them, as they go down the assembly line, as opposed to one that has a lot of customization. Ours aren't overly customized, but enough that if we were to buy the same one, it would be 36 to 40 months to buy what we bought last time. So we like 10 years of frontline service, 5 years of reserve on fire engines. We won't get these until December, well, fall of '26 is when the new ones will come in, once we order them in April. The fire engines have doubled in price in 10 years. We're paying just shy of $1 million a copy for a fire engine. That was $750,000, which was way too much just a few years ago. In 2017, I think we paid about $750,000. They're $1 million now. The ones they're replacing were half that. And I think I have one more slide. Last year, we ran 2 recruit academies. We were short of people. This is only the second time in the 21 years I've been here. We've had 2 classes in the same calendar year. The ones dressed in red, you'll see 8 of them there. 2 of them went through as interns. They were in our cadet program. Of the 8 that are there, 6 of them are working for us today. Then on September 11th and graduating on December 7th, 2 very important days in U.S. history. The class there, 2302, dressed in yellow, up on top of one of the buttes after a wildland fire training pose for that picture. All 6 of those firefighters are still working for us today. So we added a dozen firefighters to the mix in the last calendar year. We were down because of some retirements. Council also gave us ARPA money for 4 positions. So those are 4 positions that will be maintained when the levy passes in May, but they're being paid with ARPA funds now. So by having these additional bodies, we drive down that mandatory overtime some, because we have floaters. We have a few people unassigned to fill vacancies, sick leave, family medical leave. We have an unbelievable bunch of new babies coming, which is what you hire what you get when you hire a bunch of healthy young people to come to work for you. And with that, I'll take any questions or comments you may have.
Well, I'll start with just saying that I appreciate the work that you all do for our community. So I know you're housed in Gresham, but we feel a very strong sense of pride for you, for everything that you all do out here in Troutdale.
I was going to point that out. You may look on the side of one of those fire engine pictures where it says proudly serving, where we list the communities. It's not just City of Gresham, but we know that too.
Yeah. Comments or questions?
I just have a question about, we're noticing a lot of density occurring. As you mentioned, now they don't require parking. Are you finding that congestion is creating trouble for response times? Because I've noticed the traffic increasing quite a bit.
Yeah, so if you've lived here, as long as most of you have lived here, traffic is more of a problem now than it used to be. They did in Gresham get rid of that bottleneck from about Division up to Highway 26, where it was just that 2-lane up the hill.
Yeah.
That provided a lot of relief for us on this side of town. I think some of the things they've done on a countywide basis as far as traffic light integration, where they kind of time, depending on which way the traffic is going, morning or afternoon, has helped. To be honest, through COVID, traffic wasn't an issue. I think during the rush hours, it seems to me that it's back fully. They talk about a lot of people still working from home and downtown Portland isn't full or whatever. I don't see that when I drive 257th or Troutdale Road in the evenings. It seems like it's back to where it was to me, but I don't count. But yeah, we find it difficult. We have some neighborhoods in Gresham and around the Rockwood Town Square area where it gets really crowded, and a lot of people in a small space makes it tough. I think the impact of the state rules on parking are kind of new. They're just rolling out. Those buildings are just now being built, at least in Gresham, and I think they're going to impact access. So response time, if the fire lieutenant, fire captain on the fire engine says we're on the scene, he's at the building. He's not necessarily where the patient is. So those are two different things. So we report for our responses with patient on those ones where the patient isn't immediately or very readily in front of us. Because there are two different times.
Thanks. Excuse me, Chief, I just had a thought, with the new parking rules coming down from the state that we're still fighting with the CFEC legislation, is there an impact on fire service when there is no on-site parking, let's just say to an apartment complex that may have a large courtyard that you have to access to get back there? And if the street parking is all taken up because nobody has on-site parking, are you even thinking or anticipating there might be some problems if more and more developments are built without on-site parking?
We know we will have difficulties, because just because the sign says you can't park there doesn't mean they won't park there. On the plus side, most those complexes will be multi-story and be sprinklered.
Yeah.
So for the fire response, we should be getting a little help on that. On the medical call that takes us to grandma's bedside, doesn't help us at all.
Okay. Any other comments or questions from council? Councilor Glantz.
Yeah, just a quick thank you for all you do.
Yeah. How do I phrase this? What can we do to help you, aside from writing you a check like we did earlier tonight to the two people that came and asked? I know you could use it.
We could certainly use it.
What can the neighboring cities, what can we do to help support the firefighters that are supporting us when we need you the most?
I've never seen firefighters in a grocery store where somebody doesn't say thank you. And it means a lot, they are there for communities, for your community. I think they feel appreciated. I think where they feel they're not as appreciated is when it comes to budgets and revenues and stuff like that. Certainly, the budgets, while we keep doing all the stuff we've done before, or most of the stuff we've done before, budgets are getting constrained. There's less money to do certain trainings, certain equipment gets delayed on purchase, those kind of things. I'm a big advocate for sharing the service delivery model. While we are the Gresham Fire Department, you get no less of a response to your emergencies than the other communities do. Our basic house fire is 4 engines, a ladder truck, and a battalion chief, and we don't care where that house fire is. The department fire is 5 engines, ladder truck, and a battalion chief. If we're far enough west, we get a second ladder truck from Portland, but that truck comes from 122nd. So they'd rather not come this far, but they'll go to 181st with a second ladder truck. And those are really the neighborhoods we needed in the most. Very seldom would we ever need a second ladder truck in your neighborhood. Although, but before I got here, and I'm sure Councilor White remembers, there was a hotel under construction where the new Taco Bell is that we burnt to the ground a few years ago. And I think you still have a scarred mark on the highway where we had
Arby's burned down too.
Arby's burnt down, but your hotel, when it was on fire, and the downtown fire were pretty impactful to this community, and they were just a couple years apart. So with those, it's great to have Big Brother next door. They will bring a lot of resources to bear, and we'll give them whatever we can when they need the help as well. But if I had an ask, it was the service delivery model works better when we're serving each other. To have a volunteer fire department in District 10 or the three cities have a smaller fire department of their own, which makes the Gresham Fire Department smaller, then you start duplicating resources, because you have to have somebody doing my job, you have to have somebody in charge, the battalion chief on duty, and those kind of things. And then you start stacking those things up. And most places have found that bigger is better. And I don't ever want to work any place as big as Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue, because they're not about people. I think Gresham Fire is people-centric. We hire good people, we train them, and we trust them to go out and do the right things for the right reasons. And our policy manual isn't 6 inches thick. Some places have 6, 8 inches of policy manual because they try to come up with a policy for every eventuality. We rather have the important policies, train the people, have them do the right thing for the right reasons. So I think that service model works better when we're all in it together and not separated. So your contract's up in a year and a half. There will be conversations between the people that need to have those conversations. And in the end, we think we deliver great service to you, and we want to continue to do so.
Great. I am going to open it up to public comment. We're getting on in the evening, but let's keep with the same sentiment as earlier. So public comments now open. If you wish to make a comment on Zoom, now's your chance. Go ahead and unmute yourself and state your name and city of residence for the record. All right, not seeing anybody. Anybody in council chambers tonight wishes to make a comment? Not seeing anybody stand up. Okay, I'm going to close public comment. Anything else from council?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mayor Lauer, members of council, I appreciate the opportunity. This is my passion. I think you can tell just by the way I just ramble on for a long time. I'm sorry to take too much of your time, but
no.
Appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, we can tell. Yeah, thank you for all that you do and all that your firefighters do. Thank you. All right, keeping with the tone, we're going to move on to agenda item number 8, an update from Ray Young, Public Safety Services Delivery Working Group.
Thank you, Mayor. Not to diminish the importance of the issue, but it is getting late, and then 2 of the members here were on the last meeting, so I'll update you the Public Safety Working Group as quickly as I can. The Public Safety Working Group met on February 5th. We had several guests. One was Captain Asbo, and one was retired Chief Kerry Sullivan. Kerry was the former police chief of Hillsborough and Woodland, California. The meeting focused on law enforcement services, and they had 2 tasks that they accomplished quite well, both of them. Number 1 was to determine an appropriate size, budget size, the needs of a potential Troutdale Police Department recreation. And so they were given good direction. We hired Jensen Strategies to come up with a budget to reconstitute a Troutdale Police Department, and then what would be the expected average annual cost to run the Troutdale Police Department. So there was some really good input. Jensen Strategy says they got what they needed, and Mr. Sullivan works with Jensen Strategy. So we expect by the June, they thought they would get us that estimate for what they expected it would cost for us to recreate it and then run a Troutdale Police Department that was comparable to our current coverage that we get right now through Multnomah County, and it was based upon what our budget was in 2014-15. So they're off doing that work so that we can have that number, because it's good to know what it would take to get the Troutdale Police Department back, if that is something that the council decided it wanted to do. And their second was to, of course, parallel that was to figure out if we were to go back to Multnomah County, what changes would we like to see in our current FTE on our current contract. Our contract determined its cost originally of $2.7 million based upon a listing of positions and FTEs and how many were necessary to come up with that cost. In looking at that list, there was only 2 changes that were directed to be made to go back to Multnomah County with. Number 1 was, in the current contract, we get 0.66, 2/3 of an FTE of a police chief. And no denigration of the 4 police chiefs we'd had. They've been wonderful, wonderful people. They've done a great job for the city, but they were also given a full-time job at the county in addition to being our chief of police. And so it was impossible for them to be able to be here 2/3 of the time in the city doing city work. I don't think any of them spend any more than 20% of their average, weekly time doing city work. And so in talking to other cities in the metro area who contract outside of Multnomah County, one thing that they suggested that they've done for many years, particularly in Clackamas County, is they have a full-time 1 FTE police chief, and they do not have any significant duties with the sheriff's office. They just live and breathe that contract city. And so that is something that would be important. It would give much more contact between the citizens and the council and our police coverage. So that was one change, which is only a 1/3 FTE increase in what we're currently paying for. The second one was currently in the FTE, we have a 0.5 beach patrol, which was supposed to generally model having 2 resource deputies that had the summers off to go down the beach. So it was 2 quarter-time deputies. Well, in the way that's operated in the last 8 years, that's an over-resourced need, because there are many days in the summer where you don't have a lot of people down at the park, or it's raining. And so, and the sheriff's office, based on the contract, it basically said they were locked to be in the park. And so we've worked on modifying that so they didn't feel like they were locked in the park on a rainy day, because it wasn't useful for the citizens of Troutdale. And so what the committee decided to do, well, let's just take that 0.5 FTE for a beach deputy, and let's make it a full-time 1 FTE second resource deputy to go along with Nick Moore, who's our current resource deputy, and have that resource deputy have a complementary schedule. Instead of Monday through Thursday, maybe Thursday through Sunday, and maybe not full day, but maybe a swing shift. And then that deputy in the summer would also work the beach when it was necessary. So we would still have beach coverage for that deputy, but we'd also have them to do other things that were just within the city of Troutdale and just generally our direction in the city of Troutdale. And so those were a couple changes. The other thing that we're going to put in there is that we would like to see that a full-time chief, if that's what we eventually go with, would also have direct supervision over the 2 resource deputies and our code compliance officer. So that we would have almost like a mini Troutdale Police Department, where they would be people who were really much directed and cared for, and all they did was city of Troutdale work, and they did that in coordination. So at this point, I'm going to be getting a letter to the sheriff's office saying, hey, here's the last worksheet that we did to calculate what the cost would be for Troutdale. And by the way, as probably all of you know, that 2.7 million 8 years ago is now $4.5 million due to the inflation and increases in the cost. But to have them start working up a bid on that, and hopefully we will get from the city, Multnomah County, their calculation of what they want to charge us for that tweak in the FTEs. About the same time, hopefully June, that we get the cost for the Troutdale Police Department reinstitution. And also the information that we get to Multnomah County, I'm also going to send it on to the city of Gresham, who is at times in the past, it says, well, ask us, send us a request. Maybe we'll come up with a bid for you, just to give you an idea of what the city of Gresham would charge us to provide police services. So we've got the information now we need for law enforcement to get ourselves moving to the next step. Is let's start figuring out what it would cost to do all 3 of the potential options that the committee looked at. So that's good. Next Monday is the next meeting of the Public Safety Working Group, and it's going to be fire all the time next Monday night, talking about our fire service and what they would like to do in terms of trying to get options for the council to consider in terms of fire service and what might be best. And as the mayor knows, this has been something that the 3 mayors in East County, and well, the 4 mayors, so they've been working with Mayor Stovall also, to try to figure out regionally in East County what is best overall. So even though Troutdale has to look out for Troutdale, it is a service that individual cities would struggle, like Troutdale, if everyone would be able to do it on their own. And so we have to look at some way to consolidate our needs and our resources so that we can get a fire department like Chief Lewis talked about tonight that can meet all the needs that we have in quite a diverse communities. So that's going to happen on Monday. They're going to be talking about that. So I think at this point, Mayor, I think we're making good progress.
Comments or questions from council?
Sounds like.
Yeah, exactly. Councilor White.
Yeah, so, we talked about getting either some type of a security guard or something at Glen Auto. Is that
Yeah, what we're looking at this point is that, you know, I do not like asking for FTE come budget time. We be very cautious on asking for FTE. And the thought is that, yes, we would like to have either a second code compliance officer / park ranger, something that's a non-sworn type law enforcement person. But we are thinking that the better time to ask for that may be the following budget year, because hopefully by next fall, we'll have our brand new waterfront park open. And that would be and we're also working on the skate park. So by budget year 25-26, we might have a really good reason to want to increase our law enforcement presence without adding armed people to do that. So that's where staff was thinking to wait one more year, because we have a couple FTE that you'll soon see in April in the budget that we're asking for that probably are more important. But yes, that's definitely something we'd like to consider. And that would be also potentially part of that mini Troutdale Police Department if that's the format we went with. So.
Councilor Glantz.
Just a note that I see the PSAC and I see CAC, but our city calendar does not have anything on Monday.
I'm sorry, I missed the question there.
She doesn't have there's nothing on the city calendar as regards to the Monday meeting.
Oh, I don't know. Sarah, are we gonna get it up tomorrow?
Sure, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it will be there tomorrow.
Councilor Glantz, great, thank you for asking. Because it's an ad hoc committee, and Sarah and I are kind of operating, it's not an ongoing one. We're a little not as quick on the uptake in terms of getting those things up. But we already talked that I already have the agenda done. She's finishing up the minutes for the meeting, and I have all the packet ready to go. It'll probably go out to the committee on Thursday. It'll be posted on Thursday for the Monday night meeting, and it will be on the calendar by the end of tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sandy. Any other comments and questions? Yeah, Councilor White.
Also, a point of order on I know there were some changes made to that committee and CSR. And, I really liked having the mayor on that committee, nothing against your new appointee, but I feel like we need someone with some power, that the mayor has on those two important subjects, police and fire. But I understand if you're not able to do it, or you have too much on your plate. But the point of me bringing it up was that you're allowed to make the nominees, but the council still needs to vote on committees that are formed by resolution. So I don't know if we want to do that now, or we do it at the next meeting.
I would say, first of all, I appreciate your point of order and your words. I would say, because it's now 9:59, I would say if we want to, and if council is leaning towards that, doing an actual vote for my appointees, I would say let's do that on the next council meeting, if that's okay, on the March 12th council meeting, if everybody is in agreement with that.
Put it on the agenda and
Yeah.
have an explanation of what you're talking about.
Yeah. Is Sandy, Councilor Glantz and Councilor Caswell, are you in agreement with waiting until the next council meeting, or is that something that you want to look into and dive into right now?
No.
With waiting.
Good with waiting, Councilor Caswell. Sandy, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I'm fine with waiting.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Glantz. Okay, we'll put it on the next agenda. All right. With no more questions or comments with regards to the updated report, I will open it up for public comment. 9:59. Let's go public comment. Public comments now open. If anybody in council chambers wishes to make a comment with regards to agenda item number 8, an update on public safety services delivery working group, now's the time. Approach the table, state your name, city of residence for the record. Nobody? Anybody on Zoom wish to make comment? Now's the time. Again, unmute yourself and state your name and city of residence for the record. All right. Closing public comment. With that, thank you very much, Mr. Ray Young. Thank you to our, have we figured out an acronym yet?
I call it PSWAG.
PSWAG, to the PSWAG group for the work that you're doing.
For the working group. That's
Yeah. Agenda item number 9, staff communications.
Thank you, Mayor. Number 1, this is a big deal. There will be lines outside of City Hall Friday morning, March 1st, probably at 6:30, 6:45. We are releasing the community garden plots Friday morning at 8 a.m. at City Hall. So there's 20 spots or something like that. And
You just
first come-
promised 20. Holy cow,
I
people are
know.
gonna get upset when there's only 19.
First come, first serve. It's like 20 bucks, 25 bucks for a plot. So if you know anybody who mentions hot to trot, make sure they get to City Hall early, maybe set up chairs for Thursday evening. I don't know, but we'll see. But anyway, I don't think it'll be that crowded, but that's Friday morning at 8 a.m. City Hall. You can get community plots. Number 2 is on March 13th, Planning Commission's having a meeting, and one of the issues is going to be kind of an exciting thing, a conditional use permit for a pickleball court at the Troutdale, over by Dairy Queen, Troutdale Marketplace. You know, the old
an
Thriftway?
indoor?
Thriftway, new.
Yes, Tanny,
An
the old
indoor.
Thriftway. It's gonna be indoor.
Wow.
So-
A business.
Quiet too, obviously. Yeah, it's gonna be a business, and so all the things we talked about in the past about, maybe tearing more of our parks into pickleball because it's so popular. Nope. They're gonna do a private business, which is always great to have private business do this, and so that's gonna be on the Planning Commission agenda on the 13th. So that'll be nice to see possibly that coming to that area, because that's a very popular sport. And finally, another big thing happening come Friday, we are opening up committee recruitments. So all your friends, family, and enemies, hey, suggest they put an application for a city committee. So those will be online and available on Friday. So that's all we have,
Great.
Mayor.
Thank you, Ray. Council communications agenda number 10. Councilor President Ridmer.
In view of the hour, I will pass.
Councilor 1.
It was brought to my attention of some words that I may have said, that I said concerning the P-SWAG committee, and that I didn't feel like the committee did their job. And I think that my words were poorly worded by myself. What I really meant to say was I don't feel like the committee had the ample time to do the work that they were required to do. So I wanted to apologize to the members of the committee, because I don't believe that that their work was going unnoticed or anything like that. I just felt like the time they had to do that, and then the time that the council needs to make the best decisions for the city, were those two things weren't coinciding. And so in turn, I felt like having the two separate committees work on each one individually to get the information back to the council as soon as possible was the best decision. So anyways, I just wanted to outwardly apologize to the members of the committee if they felt like I was attacking them and their work, which I was not. I was more saying to the general effect that they just didn't have the time to do that. And so I wanted to say that out loud, and I will keep that.
Appreciate it. I blame Ray. So
That's
just
fine.
so that's on the record. Councilor Glantz.
A couple quick things. Last week, the Gresham work session on February 20th was recorded, and it's all about how they purchase and their plans on and how they budget for fire trucks, the AMR, and all those kind of things that we're talking about now. It was really informative. The other one is, I'm not sure, I've been having a hard time tracking with all the changes, the governor's housing bill. Is there anything we should be doing or reaching out to Zach or Chris on in terms of things we'd like to see? I don't know if that's anybody's watching that or if there's anything we can do to sign on and support that. And then the last one was, and just a little concerned about Multnomah County on Thursday taking away some property taxes in the form of offering credits for new developments. And while we don't have any new developments right now, I'm just a little concerned that as we're looking down the barrel of new fire and police contracts, that any kind of impact like that might be concerning.
I'm going to make one comment on the legislation issue, Councilor Glantz. Part of the problem is it's a moving target. The House or the Senate just proposed a different bill that's different than what the governor wanted. So they're arguing about it right now, but I will ask Erica to get up to speed on it, or Ed to get up to speed on it too, since he pays attention to that stuff, and let us know if there's anything we should pay particular attention to. So, good issue.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Glantz. Counselor White?
Yeah, I reached out to Senator Gorsuch's office. If you remember when Zach and Chris Gorsuch were here, I gave him the transportation update on 257. And it really concerned Chris that they were going to do that, shrink down a freight route. And he thought if we were willing to write a letter for him to kind of look into that more closely, that he would, because he is the co-chair of the transportation board, our area. And Ray thought it'd be better to put it on the agenda, but I thought I'd give you a heads up to start thinking about it. Maybe we should add the TriMet thing in there as well. But
yeah.
I don't know if that falls under his wheelhouse.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Counselor One. Counselor Wittrin, W's, I apologize.
No, just the hour of the evening, I want to pass.
Counselor Caswell?
Yeah, nothing for me.
All right, nothing for me. Thank you, everybody.
I'll make a motion that we adjourn this evening.
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, we're done, everybody. Thank you. Have a good evening. It's dinner time.
Wow. Huge day.
Dude.